No way. Then that promise about him coming for you was, I was a dreamer. It was just an illusion I created. To Battler, they were probably just meaningless words to make him sound cool. Like I said, I don't know what direction the author's going with this, but I'll say this. From my point of view, I think either Battler did care, and he wrote a letter, and the letter was thrown away, so he was trying to write letters, or he was concerned about, like, hey, if I write a letter, even if I write a letter to literally everyone on the building, like, I mean, at that point, okay, maybe I could write a letter to Genji and write a letter to Kumasawa, that way it doesn't single Shannon out, because at that point he understands the way his family, the way the Ushiromis are, they're kind of jerks. Heck, I know a picture of Rosa and Maria. It's a meme. And it's just like every member of this family has some major dysfunction. Also keep in mind, 6 years for the incident, Battler was 12 years old. Initially. Even at this point, Battler's 15. In 3 years, he's 18. Or 19. The main point is, like, you're 12 or 13. But the other thing is this. I'm thinking either he was trying to write a letter, or he said those things and he meant them. And he actually did like Shannon that way and wanted and meant every word he said. But I think maybe his own self-esteem fell apart, and he was probably thinking, you know, if I come back to Rockinjima, she's going to reject me. At which point, yeah, I still think that's a fault on Battler's part. You know, I would consider that a bit cowardly. You should at least try. I mean, it's really not that big a deal being rejected by people. I've been rejected by more people than Goku's power level when he fought Vegeta. So. Still think he should have tried, but so it's still Battler's fault in that regard. But for a different reason. Because they're playing like, okay, he was just saying stuff just because he just says shit like that all the time. No, I think he actually meant it with Shannon. I think just with everything going on, his self-esteem and his own feeling of self-worth was damaged enough to where he kind of just lost faith in himself and lost faith that Shannon would like him back. There's a good chance that if nothing had happened between them and Rudolph or anything, he would have showed up. He would have had more faith in himself, and he would still would have. But also keep in mind, he was waiting for Shannon's answer. So, one, either he didn't want to face Rudolph and all them. Two, also, again, the grandparents that are raising Battler may be exerting more power and control over him. Because keep in mind, he does become reintroduced to all the others when those grandparents die. So it's also quite possible that even at this point, the person who's 15 and has been living for like 3.5 to 4 years with these grandparents may have been under a bit of brainwashing himself. You don't know what's being said to him on a daily basis. And he himself may not have a lot of say in things. And when it comes right down to it, it's like, okay, if I cross that bridge with those grandparents, well then, do I have to go back to Rudolph? Is there anywhere else you can possibly go? And you have to be realistic about stuff. How on earth could he come for Shannon on a white horse when he's basically homeless at that point? What? Is he going to invite her into Rudolph's home? Like, hey, here's his place of extreme familial dysfunction. I'm sure you'll feel really welcome there. Especially since they're the people part of the family that... So it's like... he can't really come for her on a white horse. Because here's the thing. How does he come One, if he could write a letter, here's a question, would his letter just get thrown away in the trash? Like I said, I'm still of the opinion that Battler did try writing a letter to her. But I think someone, possibly even Kyrie, tore up that letter. Possibly Rudolph. I'm thinking that... Like, here's the thing. How would he come back? Well, he'd have to come with Rudolph and deal with being around him the whole time, like we saw when he was 18. And he did okay with that, but here's the thing. It's just, how does he come back to the island? And even then, what exactly would he write in the letter to Shannon? Hi, Shannon. It's like, you know that extremely sensitive thing that if we're both putting the same amount of importance on it, it's going to have you have a mental breakdown in front of, you know, the rest of the family. So at that point, you'd have to come in person. But in order to come in person, so that's assuming the letter would even be given to her. After all the members of the family seem to want to push the people away from Shannon, so more than likely Rudolph might even seen the letter from Battler to Shannon and be like, nope, fuck that. Kyrie probably even like showed Rudolph all the letters. And again, it's still interesting that Kyrie is actually Battler's biological mother, but neither Kyrie or Battler know this, because Rudolph switched Battler with a dead baby. Because Asumu and Kyrie both had children the same day, same hospital. And I'll say this, I think it's important for paternity tests. Because at the end of the day is this. You have to be very careful your baby doesn't get switched or something. After all, there's other babies getting born every day, especially if you're in like a busy hospital. You know, why wouldn't any mother and father want to double check to make sure that this is your child, that it didn't somehow get switched? Now, I mean, I could understand, like, okay. Like, there should be questions at some point. Like, you look at Battler, and you look at Angie, and you're like, you know, for people that are half brother and sister, they look really, really close, like they could be twins. And it's like, well, yeah, they share a father. Okay, that's fine enough. But here's a question. Why do they look this similar? Like, oh, Rudolph must just have very strong genes. Also, I'm still not entirely sure. Like, is Kyrie meant to be French? Like, is that... Like, I don't know if that's intentional. And whether it's intentional or not, does she look French? Because every person I compare her to is also French. Because I've said it before, like, where is... Kyrie is extremely beautiful. But I also think she looks just like Ivy from Soul Calibur 2. I also think she looks like Saray the VTuber, both her IRL stuff and her VTuber model. And I think she looks like Kaoru Nagisa, the cute twink from Evangelion, Neon Genesis Evangelion, the first version, because they remade it so many times. Which again, I'm not against remakes, but I still think it's important to see the original version. Even though I say that, and I like Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040 the best, even though it's the third remake of that series. Heck, they're making a new remake of Ghost in the Shell that's supposed to come out like later this year or next year. But I'm just saying this. Ivy from Soul Calibur 2, a video game character, is French. Saray is an actual person. She's French. And Kaoru Nagisa. Technically, he's an angel from outer space and stuff. But he's also supposed to be French. Is this what French people look like? I don't know, if all French people look like this, then French people are attractive. But I've never been to France. I feel like we've gotten distracted. I don't remember what we were talking about. I don't know. This is the controversial video of Lunar admitting French people are attractive, I guess. I don't know. But I'm just saying this. Oh yeah. Like I said, yes. No matter what, Battler's still at fault here, but keep in mind, everyone is like barely a teenager at this point. Or even, it's like, these are people like Yu Hakusho age, or Evangelion age. In a very, like, let's be clear, to anyone who's been paying attention to this whole series, this family is kind of abusive. I mean, Kinzo, like, everybody would, like, I'll use a thumbnail, but basically, everybody's kind of a jackass in this family to everyone. Like, even when Shannon was initially talking to George, not even dating him, and she was against the idea of doing it for multiple reasons herself. George's mom came up to her and basically just verbally massacred her, whispering into her ear, saying the most heinous shit. And then, like, backed off and smiled and was all friendly in front of everyone, so no one could even tell that she basically was just said the most horrible shit to this person, who technically is supposed to be the successor to the entire Ushiromi of wealth. But, you know, things did not turn out that well. You know, Natsui kind of threw you off a cliff, Leon, and then you became Sayo. Leon Ushiromio, like the most cursed Pokemon evolution, became Sayo Yasuda, which at this point it only makes me think of two things. I've made a joke at one point, like there was a guy called Jschlat who like reacts to videos. He does streaming stuff, and he was like people submitted videos of their rooms, and on their bed they had a blanket that was just Jschlat's face, and someone's like, it's a schlanket. And I'm just thinking to myself, that'd be the cursed Pokemon right there. You know, what if you had an Eevee, but it like, just imagine a large plushy Eevee, but it's got like miniature Jschlat faces like all over it. The Schleevee, which sounds like a sex toy. The Schleevee. It's just like, whoa, what's the Schleevee? It's a 40-pound Eevee sex toy, or Vaporeon. It probably exists out there. I wouldn't put it past someone to have actually made. Well, now we're talking about hypothetical sex toys, like basically a blow-up doll made of realistic flesh in the shape of a Vaporeon. And it has boobs for some reason. Are we going to have like 6-foot-tall, bipedal, you know, humanoids with realistic skin, AI, that are going to look like Pokemon? Like, I still say Angelmon from Digimon's the best Pokemon, Paizurimon. But, again, we're way off topic here. Oh yeah, cursed Pokemon ideas. Carbmander! Carbmeleon. Like, imagine if you, like, used, like, Grok or AI to make an edited AI picture of Charmeleon, but made out of, like, French croissants. Carbmeleon. Carbmander. I don't know. For some reason, that just reminds me of this picture I've seen once. It's like this a beautiful Japanese woman with giant titties, and she's wearing a Pikachu shirt, but, you know, the little red things on Pikachu's cheeks are like on her tits. So the same way, like, you see the picture of, like, and you think to yourself, the picture of, like, where in the anime someone's, like, rubbing Pikachu's, like, red cheeks. Yeah. I don't know. Main point I'm just saying is this. Battler probably meant everything he said to Sayo, to Shannon. But, one, not only were things a bit fucked up with his family, so that it may have, like, he may have actually been writing her letters and they were just, like, maybe throwing his letters away and he thought Shannon was getting letters the whole time. Or maybe he thought, again, the low self-esteem thing, maybe his letters were being given to Shannon, and she just wasn't responding to him. So he was like, from his point of view, this person didn't like me. Or from his point of view, it was like, yeah, I confessed this love to Shannon, like she was my first love, and my plan was to come back when I was an adult. But, you know, she had already, you know, committed herself to George. So obviously Shannon never loved me. So that's probably what Battler's thought process was. Is like, well, I'll just wait until I'm an adult, because then I'll have legal authority. Because otherwise, what happens? Let's say, hypothetically, Battler says, okay, I love Shannon, and I'm pretty sure she loves me too. So I'm going to go and I'm going to come for a white horse. But here's the thing. In the same way, Shannon's been thinking about this stuff ever since. Well, he's had, not even counting the stuff with Rudolph and everything, he's been thinking about, you know, realistically, how would that work out? Like, he's trying to actually plan. And that's something that I assume most people do if they take something seriously. And I think most men are very... Because I'll tell you this. This may sound a bit sexist, and it probably is. But the idea is this. Men generally understand that when it comes to doing something, they have to take responsibility for it. That there are consequences, and that the world isn't a fairy tale. So a man has to understand, okay, realistically, what power do I have? What can I do? What will society be? Like, if I come for Shannon and tell her, okay, I love you. First off, one, at this point, Battler's self-esteem is already in the trash. Even before Sumu, because he's like doubting himself and his own value. So he's like, if I come back up and, you know, she's going to tell me no, which that's her choice, but at the same time, it's like, it means a lot to him, so it's an issue of heartbreak for him. So he's like, almost deciding his rejection ahead of time. He's like, okay, there's no, like, at that point, Battler's like, okay, I meant everything I said about the promise to Shannon, but when I come for her after she's made that decision, there's no way, like, in his mind, he's like, there's no way she would actually like me. She's gonna come and she can be like, no, I decided no, I'd rather stay a servant or go somewhere else. And also Battler may be thinking, well, there's people that would probably be better for her, or she'd be happier with someone else than me. Or maybe it didn't mean much to her, maybe she was just being melodramatic. At which point, yes, that is a bit of a failure on Battler's part. He is lacking faith in himself, and he is lacking faith in Shannon. After all, Shannon had the same exact line of reasoning when it came to that stuff, to where, and then she even got on her own case saying that, well, it's a lack of faith in herself and a lack of faith in Battler. But keep in mind, these are both people in love, so they probably have similar feelings. After all, that was largely what drew them together, is that they do have a very similar thought process when it comes to things. I would say they're kindred spirits, but they actually are blood related. They just don't know this. Anyway, main point is they both have very similar minds in terms of they like detective novels, they like mystery novels, they like reading. After all, as much as I do constantly talk about how beautiful Kyrie is, like, she has a very pretty face, a very pretty body, her tits are awesome. I'm imagining playing with them and sucking on them right now. You guys don't need to know that, but I'm sharing it. Heck, at this point, let's add more superfluous information, you know? A lot of times I'll skip the intro just because I'm trying to make shorter videos nowadays. Trying to keep the videos to a much, because there's times in the past where I made several hour-long videos many times. Like, I still have many videos on there, like 8-9 hours. Like, I need to try to keep things shorter. Heck, I once made a 13.5 hour long video where I spent 7+ hours crying and screaming volumes while laughing. It was very sad. Anyway, that being said, there was a limit to human stress response, because eventually I just started shaking a bunch and vomiting a bunch. So, yeah, apparently you can't scream, cry, and laugh at screaming volumes for like an entire day, basically. Without your body being like, what the fuck is happening? But, yeah, my intro. Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. Your tsundere streamer who doesn't stream. Well, like I said, one, Battler may have lost self-esteem in himself and before the Asumu thing. He was probably thinking, okay, there's no way Shannon would actually like me back. I'll go back and she'll just tell me no. And of course, when Asumu died, he was probably he'd probably talked to Asumu about it. And he was probably counting on Asumu to help. But at the end of the day, it's also this. Even if he'd never mentioned anything to her about it, the fact that Asumu died, that's a major support system for him gone, and his ability to have any sort of confidence would have been very damaged. In addition to that, well, he probably just figured, okay, there's no way Shannon would actually like me. She's just going to reject me, so I'm just not going to go there, so I don't have to deal with it. I'll just leave her be. After all, one, it's a cowardly thing on my part, because at least that way I'm running away from being rejected, and I've already given up faith that she would even like me, or that I'm worthy of being loved. But also, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's better for her. Maybe me going and talking to her about that stuff, maybe I'm bothering her. Maybe I'm harassing her. Maybe me saying I'm going to come for Shannon on a white horse is sexual harassment. After all, I'm part of the Ushiromiya family. I'm fucking these super rich people who she works for. At this point, it's like, you know, isn't it like thinking the waitress at a restaurant has a crush on you because she was polite to you? Simply put is this. From Battler's point of view, it's like, okay, one, I have a power imbalance between me and Shannon because of my family. So one, is me even talking to Shannon like this actually been sexual harassment? Was me saying, hey, I'll come for you in a white horse, and I'll rescue you, and I love you, and you know, I won't rush you on a decision. You can tell me a year from now. At that point, is Battler like, well, was me even saying that to her sexual harassment? Would be the most moral thing I can do be just leave her alone? Maybe if I come back to Rockinjima, I'm just bothering her. Maybe if I come back expecting an answer from her, even if I'm being the most polite person possible and I try to go out of my way not to pressure her, maybe that's being abusive to Shannon. Maybe I'm sexually harassing Shannon by coming back and fulfilling. After all, I made that promise, but she didn't really agree to it. She didn't really say too much back. She like sort of nodded her head, but maybe that was just because she's a servant in the family. Maybe because it's a power imbalance. Maybe me saying, oh, I promise I'll come back in a year, riding on a white horse for your answer, maybe I'm being predatory. Maybe it is immoral for me to want a wife or a family. Maybe it is misogynistic for me to tell a woman I love her and want a relationship with her. You know? Maybe it's I'm harassing Shannon by saying I care about her and I love her and I want to be with her. Maybe it is sexual harassment and an abuse of power and predatory for me to say I'll come back. So at that point, it would be immoral and against God for me to stick to the promise I made to Shannon. After all, if I stick to the promise I made to Shannon, regardless of her answer, whether it's no or yes, I'm a bad person and I'm wronging her, which means the only good thing I could ever do to Shannon would be to just leave and to have nothing to do with her. In fact, Shannon probably hates me. She probably thinks every day, oh my god, that stupid Battler brat fucking talking. The only reason I have to deal with him because he's fucking part of this Ushiromiya family. I'm a fucking prisoner on this island. I can't go anywhere, and I'm not allowed to talk back. After all, everyone in this fucking family is an abusive piece of shit. After all, Rosa constantly beats her fucking daughter at all times and, criminally neglects her. So, and that's like the least dysfunctional thing of this family, which Shannon, is the one seeing all of it Like, she's the one behind, because no one really gives a fuck about her opinion. And this is a person who has no support system. They come from a fucking orphanage, and they just live as a servant. And even when they go to school, Jessica, they're just there, like they're repeatedly warned, like, hey, you're not allowed to talk to things. But of course, she talks to Jessica all the time because she lives on a fucking island by herself. She's so alone all the time. You know, she's starved. All she has is the other servants, her books, and the people there. And even then, she's required a certain amount of propriety. You know, at that point, it's like, one, she's talking to Battler just because she's lonely. There is no one else. There is no one else that could love her or care about her because she's basically a prisoner on this deserted island, surrounded by people that are just a bunch of rich people on an island. I mean, you'd think that there's no such thing as bad, rich people on an island. Like, think about this. Imagine, like, there's probably parallels in media, heck, probably even real life. There's probably stories of an island somewhere there that's owned by rich people that, you know, are probably not very nice to people. You know, there's probably rich people on an island somewhere in the past in some story that were not very nice to people. So the idea like this, like an island somewhere where there's a bunch of rich people on an island without much oversight from the rest of the world that are just not very nice to people. You know, Rockinjima probably wouldn't be the first place, and whatever things are happening behind the doors, you know, we're seeing all these things. So, and here's the thing, Battler is part of that family, but he didn't choose to be part of that family. But even then, imagine this. Imagine you were somebody who was born into a family that is super rich and goes to an island where just it's a bunch of rich people, and you feel that you dislike the way they treat people, so you don't want to go to that rich people island anymore. Even though there was a servant who worked on one of those islands that you thought, oh, that person's kind of pretty. I actually love that person. But at the same time, you're like, well, there's no way that person actually loves me back. And even then, you feel so disgusted by the other people on the island, you're like, fuck you guys, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. But at the same time as this, Shannon, you're after all, think of it from Battler's point of view. He loves Shannon. And they're both very smart. They read books. And I've said before, Kyrie, not only is she extremely beautiful in physical appearance, but she's actually very smart and very mature. And she's the kind of person who likes to read and have actual discussions about things. And she doesn't use that intellect or discussions to be confrontational or contentious or ornery or ill-tempered or difficult to deal with. She does it to be what anyone would want in a spouse, whether it's your husband or your wife. You want someone who's supportive to you. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what sexual orientation you are. Whoever you are dating, you want whoever you're with to be emotionally supportive to you. And you want them to be smart. You want them to be good companions. You want them to be your best friend. And you want them to be able to think very intellectually about things. And not only understand logic of things, but also to be able to plan ahead. And you want them to be able to use that to help you miss details that you overlook. Not to criticize you or say you failed but understand this or that, but rather because they're using that to support you. Same way you use your intellect because there's things you can understand that they don't, and you can use that to support them. It's supposed to be a mutual beneficial partnership, like a symbiosis. Think like Venom or something, okay? I mean, I think that's the best way of any kind of relationship, for at least a healthy relationship. Granted, I know, kind of fucked up coming from me, when I have not had a single healthy relationship in my entire life. And, well, all of that's gone horrible, but I've already talked about that in depth. Main point is this. Any healthy relationship, you know, both people should be mutually beneficial to each other. Both people should love each other. Both people should respect each other. You know, so basically, like, if Kyrie as a wife, she's really smart, she's awesome to talk to, and she uses that intelligence to actually be supportive of me and to help me. And to be someone, like, if I need to discuss something philosophically with someone, I actually have someone who's just as smart as me who I can have that discussion with. You know, I can actually have a conversation of immense value. One, it's of immense value because it's with somebody I love and cherish, but also it's of incredible immense value because it's with someone whose intellect is truly worth having this discussion with. And it's the same thing with Shannon. Battler's like, they think the same, and they both actually have the same insecurities when it comes to things. But he's probably thinking, okay, from Battler's point of view, it's like, okay, I really love Shannon, but she's a servant on this island. Is she just being nice to me because, of the power imbalance here? So one, does she even actually like me? Even if in a situation like, okay, she gives me an honest answer, right? Like, let's say I come back to Rockinjima. There's only two options she says to me, no or yes. And yes is a whole other issue that we have to get to in a bit. But first, let's approach the no. No. Well then, rejection. Obviously, Battler has low faith in himself, low faith in Shannon, and he doesn't want to get his feelings hurt. And also, we have the issue of he has to deal with going there with Rudolph, and also possibly getting her in trouble. There's also whether or not, like, okay, she's saying yes, saying no. And here's the thing. If she says no, okay, that's all sorts of, but even if she says yes, here's the thing, is she only saying yes because she's on an island and she's a servant and she has no one else really to talk to? Is it because this circumstance on her has forced her in a situation where she has no other options? Was she only talking to me about the stuff with, like, our mutual interest in novels because she had no one else to talk to her age about those things because she couldn't find anyone else that shared that same interest with her? And I was just the only person? So at that point, if there was anyone else, one, wouldn't she only have chosen those people over me? But also then, is it really fair to her? And even then, given this power imbalance, like, if she says yes, is she only saying it because I have a position of power and authority over her? Because of that? Because of the whole servant, Ushiromiya thing? Am I being immoral by promising her that? Like, at that point, it wasn't just saying melodramatic shit to sound cool. It's that he meant every fucking word of it. But then when it becomes an issue of, okay, what if I get rejected? What if she doesn't feel the same? What if she's angry at me? What if she thought everything I said was cringe? And like, okay, it's like, okay, I went up to this woman, Shan, and I confessed, like, hey, I love you. I'm going to come for you on a white horse and rescue you. And you turn around and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. I sounded so stupid. And everyone's like, oh, he just said that sound cool. And he's thinking to himself, I sounded so dumb. Oh my God, she probably hates me. Oh, it's just so awkward. Like, there's no way she could feel the same way about me that I feel about her. Oh my God, now she's going to be dreading me coming back. Now she's not going to, she won't want to be my friend anymore. She won't want to talk about like, I really enjoyed talking, I love her. But now she won't even want to talk or see me anymore. And then, of course, the issue of, okay, then all this stuff that happened with Rudolph, his self-esteem, sense of self, more damaged. And then, okay, you have to come there with Rudolph and everyone. And it's just, at that point, emotional withdrawal, as well as just, avoidance of anything that's uncomfortable. But even then, it's this. Okay, is Shannon only going to want to be with him because of things? Here's the thing, and even then, it's not even like a conscious choice on Shannon's part. From Battler's point of view, it's like, okay, I love Shannon, but even if she loves me back, well, even if she sincerely feels that she loves me, is it fair to her? Like, is she only, like, even if her feelings for me are sincerely true, let's say even if she, one, does actually love me and wants to be with me, and her feelings are sincerely true, didn't those feelings only just develop because of her environment? At which point, doesn't that make me a monster for fulfilling my promise to Shannon? Like, if I go back on a white horse and come for her as her prince, does that make me a bad person? Is that me taking advantage of Shannon being in a vulnerable situation where it makes it where that's the only reason she ever did actually have those feelings to love me? And it's not like she's lying to me. So it's like, she does have feelings for me. She does say yes, and she does mean it sincerely. And it's not like she has any ulterior motive about it, but it could because, maybe she's in a vulnerable position that, it's like I'm taking advantage of her. So at that point, her being on Rockinjima like that, wouldn't that be like the same as like picking up a drunk woman from a bar? And again, maybe I'm putting a lot on Battler at 13 or something. But it's like, he's the kind of person, he wants to be very moral about everything. After all, he's the kind of person who has his heart on the sleeve. You know, the whole point of an earlier part of the story was how emotionally upset he was of, one, at people getting hurt, and two, at the idea that one of his own relatives or anyone in that place would do anything wrong. Heck, he was against the idea of suspecting any of the servants. Shannon, Cannon, Genji, Nanjo, Goda. Like, he was against the idea, and he was frequently standing up for all of them. Because he was like, hey, it's not fair. Like, I understand, I haven't been here in years. And a lot of my family's kind of assholes. But I still love them. Like, I understand, you guys are jerks about stuff, and you behave in ways that piss me off. After all, there's a reason I've been gone for fucking years. But, and there's a reason I feel like Shannon's in a situation where she basically would have just hopped on anyone or fallen in love with anyone to, one, escape my family, but also because she's so emotionally damaged because of my family that her feelings of love that she developed for me, even though they're sincere, were only developed because of the emotional need and damage created by the rest of my fucking family, which again, she'd have to deal with the rest of the time. She'd be shackled to them if she's my wife. Even if, like, I disown all of Ushiromi and I go off somewhere by myself, here's the thing. We'll still have to talk to my family from time to time. That can't be good for her. The best thing I could ever do for Shannon, if I truly love Shannon, would be to just never fucking come back. Let Shannon forget about me. You know what? In fact, it's been 3 years since I came back. I wrote letters to everyone but Shannon. At this point, if I wrote a letter to Shannon, one, there's a chance he wrote a letter to Shannon because he really loves her and don't want to give up on it, that someone else just tore up the letter. But it could also be that he thought about writing a letter for Shannon, and he was like, you know what, no. It would be cruel of me to write a letter for Shannon. Even if I have an intention to come back for her, it's like the fact that matters is she needs to move on with her life, and at this point, it's 3 years later, and he's like, okay, if I write a letter to Shannon, that would be hurtful. That would be wrong of me. That would be morally wrong of me to write a letter to Shannon. And after all, at this point, one, if she hasn't forgotten about me, if she does care, then only I'm going to do is hurt her feelings. Like, after all, there's only two situations. Either Shannon does love me or she doesn't love me. If she does love me, then she's probably already in a bit of pain at not me coming back, and the best thing I could do for her is just not come back. After all, at this point, I've already caused her enough hurt. I shouldn't come back. You know? And it's just, if I wrote her a letter, I'd probably just be bothering her. Heck, if she loves me, I would probably just be hurting her feelings. I would probably just cause her pain. And even though, like, I love Shannon, I don't want to cause her any pain. So I'm just not going to write her a letter. That way I won't hurt her. Because at least if I don't write her a letter, she can just eventually forget about me, move on, and be happy. Because there's no way she can ever be happy with me. And if I write her a letter, regardless if I intend to stay away forever at that point, or even if I intend to come back the very next year to even propose to her, and everything could work out perfectly, I'd only be causing her pain. I'd only hurt her. And even then, that's if she even loves me at all. You know, more likely she doesn't love me. How could Shannon ever love me? I'm Battler. How could Shannon ever love me? You know, if I write her a letter, I'm just going to be annoying her. I'm going to ruin her entire day. I'm going to upset her. Heck, she probably doesn't even work for the Ushiromias anymore. Heck, you know, she works for Ushiromi and all that. Yes, you know what? Shannon probably doesn't even remember me. Shannon, there's no way Shannon remembers Battler. You know, there's no way she could ever love Battler. There's no way she even remembers him. You know, Shannon can't remember me. There's no way she remembers me. And if I do write her a letter, she'll either be like, oh, that's that stupid Battler writing me a letter. Or she'll be like, oh, it's that guy I love who's been gone for years. At that point, it'd just be like stringing her along. That'd be manipulative. At which point it means if I talk to Shannon in any way, or write her a letter, or whether it's as friends or confessing love, it's manipulative. I'm being abusive. You know, it means at this point, if I write Shannon a letter saying anything, whether it's, hi Shannon, how you been? How you doing, friend that I like to read with? Or, hi, I love you and I plan to come and marry you when I'm 18 because of legal issues. Because I'm like, hey, I realize that financially and legally we can't do shit because of my family being a bunch of abusive fuckers. After all, I mean, Rosa has been beating Maria for years. And the father in that situation, I don't know about, and she's also constantly like leaving Maria home alone for like days on end. So when she's like, just to go fuck random dudes and go on vacations. Kinzo's, would beat all 4 of his kids, had a mistress that may or may not exist. It's a super rich people on an island. I mean, then again, let's be clear, there's never been an island owned by rich people that bad things happened on. That doesn't happen. There's no way that there would be a bunch of rich people in a position of isolation that would be abusive about their power over that anyway, or be jerks. That just doesn't happen, right? But then you have just like Kinzo in general has been a temperamental fucking asshole to everyone. Rudolph, again, there's questions about certain things. And then, of course, Kraus is kind of a jerk. Natsui, and again, those people are kind of strict. Ava and Hideyoshi are kind of strict about stuff with George. Then there's a question of Kairi's parents and Asumu's parents. After all, we know that Kairi's sister is a psychotic bitch who decides to eventually try to murder and assassinate Angie, Battler's little sister. And we also know that Kairi was largely trying to escape from her own family because her family is a bunch of abusive fuckers. And we really don't know certain things about Asumu, but keep in mind, Asumu's son actually was a stillborn one. Battler was actually born to Kairi, and then Rudolph switched the babies. I can't remember if Asumu was in on that or not. But Kairi and Battler do not know that they are actually mother and son, biologically. And yet there are so many times Kairi was fucking resenting Battler because she was like, what about my son that died? And Battler's like, what about my mom that, my dad threw away for you? And but you guys are actually mother and son. But it's just think about this. The Ushiromiya rich people thing, the servant, the fact you're on an isolated island, the fact that she had no one else to talk to, and she's in a situation where, if she did talk back to me, I could just talk shit to Kraus and all them and got her fired or got her in trouble. I have the power to ruin this person's life. So at that point, isn't Shannon only being nice to me because I essentially have a gun to her head? At that point, heck, at this point, if I write Shannon a letter, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of stuff in the whole Me Too movement that label that as actual rape. And after all, it's just, do I agree with that concept? Not particularly, but I do say this. We do know that there's a bunch of crazy people out there that make very loud statements about that stuff, particularly on Twitter and all those things the past, especially in 2016, 2018 era. I mean, heck, I'm sure everyone remembers the whole Johnny Depp trial thing. But it's just, that viewpoint definitely gets held by a lot of people out there, and a lot of very asshole-ish people are very loud about that. Then it kind of reminds me of a lot of stuff, especially in churches. There are some churches out there where it's everything's hypocritical, holier than thou bullshit, and it's constant purity tests, constant virtue signaling. Everyone's just performative, everything they do. There's so many people. I've gone to churches, I'll try to travel and meet different people. I'm trying to understand different people. But I'll tell you this, I've seen people that sang in the middle of a church pew, and they had a beautiful voice, and they were very loud and singing the praise. But at the end of the day, it was about an ego thing for them. They're being oh, I got this status in this society and do this. But then just an hour later, I hear them just casually walking around saying the most vulgar shit. And it's and yeah, I'll talk about various odd things with you guys, but even then, I don't consider it vulgar in the same manner. Some stuff, I might talk about hentai and stuff, but that's more so talking about lewd stuff. There's a difference between that and someone talking about stuff that's actually straight up fucking vulgar. And I'm not talking about like sexual stuff. I mean, basically hateful, just belligerent stuff that is just seems outright malevolent. Like, the kind of stuff you'd expect a fucking drunk, heroin-addicted, drug dealer, gang member to be talking. Basically, a lack of respect, lack of kindness, and just a sound in their voice like this individual would be impulsive, violent, and just a very hateful, disrespectful person. Like, just very... Like, this is the kind of person that sounds like they'd be a Batman villain in terms of cruelty. Then again, I've said before, I'd be the worst Batman villain ever. I wouldn't be hurting anyone. I would just be walking around talking to Batman about my feelings. And then we get Dairy Queen. It's like the Jared Leto thing where he's like, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to hurt you really, really bad. Whereas me, it'd be like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to annoy you very badly. It'd be like Hellraiser. You saw the cube that summons me. It's like, you opened the box. I came. And like, oh God, what's going to happen? I'm going to talk to you about geometry and trains. Also, I brought Pepsi and pizza. Also, here's a bunny rabbit and stuffed animals. And now we're going to talk about obscure anime trivia. Double checking OBS, which is at 46 minutes, which already much longer than I've been making videos in a long time. I've been trying to keep videos much, much shorter. But, yeah. Main point being is like, at this point, you know, let's be clear. It's been 3 years since I spoke to Shannon. She probably doesn't remember me. That's one. Is she even still a servant on Ushiromiya? She was already saying she was planning to quit anyway. She's probably already gone and moved on with her life. And even if I have asked other people, wouldn't that be weird and inappropriate for me to ask George and Jessica and all them about Shannon? Wouldn't that be inappropriate on my part? Wouldn't that be wrong for me? Like, wouldn't I be overstepping a boundary? Heck, when I made that promise to Shannon, what if, like, as soon as I said, I'll come back for you in a year, I was like, what if I just turned back around and said, I'm sorry, I know I just made that promise I'd come back for you in a year, but I love you too much, Shannon. I can't wait. I can't wait a whole year to wait for your answer. In fact, if you want, I want you to come with me now. I'll take you back home with me and Rudolph and Asumu. I mean, would that be considered appropriate? I mean, I don't know what each individual person's answer is. Obviously, I think the default answer, and I think the true answer about this is, you're thinking too much on this. But keep in mind, that is kind of what all of these characters are doing. And, because after all of these things could be solved with just direct communication. And just, basically, everyone should just talk to each other as if they're autistic. Okay? Don't assume everyone understands subtle fucking context and subtext bullshit. Don't be like, well, they understood this, or I looked this way. No, just approach someone and be direct with them. Like, for example, let's say you like a girl. Don't bother being smooth. And granted, maybe this is why I'm such a fucking failure. And then again, I tried being smooth about stuff too. As far as actually being, you know, normal, charismatic, have a proper conversation with somebody. But the day is this. Just assume everyone's fucking autistic, okay? Just assume that everyone's either autistic or has low self-esteem or has their own shit going on in their life that basically is like, okay, oh, I gotta pay this bill, I got this going on, or my back is hurting, or shit, I hurt my knee earlier, or my chest feels kind of weird, am I having a heart attack? Like, you know, little things like that. You should assume that, hey, each person has their own life. There might be some crazy ass shit going on that is really, really huge for them. So at that point, don't just leave things, you know, as like a, oh, we'll throw a little probability here and there. No, just go to the person directly and be like, hey, I like you. If if you like me back, I would like to be in a relationship with you. Obviously, that is not an effective way of communicating in terms of actually getting someone to like you, unless they like you back. But at that point, isn't that the best thing ever? Because think about this. Let's put it this way. If you meet someone, you're like, well, if you approach them directly and say, hey, I think you're really cute, let's go grab a coffee. Well, some people say that's too direct. But here's the best way to put it is this. If they like you, they won't care about that, and they'll instantly give you a yes. And if they don't, well then, they wouldn't have liked you in the first place, and even if you could start a relationship by having any sort of proper discussion with them that leads up to it eventually, well, at that point, that relationship's not going to work out, and it's not going to be happy. Then I'll tell you this, any relationship I had, I actually wasn't the one who initiated for the most part. It was actually a situation like where someone else asked me out. Granted, all those people all cheated on me, and that went poorly, and I got treated badly. But I'm just saying, any time I actually had an actual relationship, that person's the one who asked me out. Which you think would actually make a higher probability of success, but I mean, at least means I had a relationship with them. But at the same time, it's just like, yeah, but every single one of those people cheated on me. And, well, my marriage wasn't exactly the greatest. I mean, I have a 3-inch scar on my right arm to remember last Christmas being married to my ex-wife by. So, but then again, most people would probably go with the argument that men can't be the victims of domestic violence. Right? Main point I'm just trying to say is this. If you like someone, you should be more direct about it. If things don't work out, then they wouldn't have worked out anyway. And even if you could have made them work out for a bit by being less direct, it would end poorly and it wouldn't be happy. And in the end, it would not be well. Which means this. Yes, you have a much higher probability of an instant no if you're just direct about things. But also there's a lot of yeses you'll get that you would never got in the first place. And a lot of the no's you get that could have been yeses would have eventually been a lot more heartbreak and a lot more problems down the line. So at that point, you avoid a lot more serious problems, and you're much more efficient with your time, and you avoid hurting anyone. And you go to the path of the greatest happiness. So why wouldn't you do that? And even then, I think communication is important. I think people should just be direct and honest. The end. But the main point is this. Does Shannon even remember me? Shannon's probably doesn't even remember me. Even if she still works at Ushiromi, she probably doesn't remember me. Heck, if I came back or wrote her a letter, she'd probably be annoyed with me. She'd probably get in trouble. After all, the rest of Ushiromi would probably hop on her case and start being mean to her over it. And heck, if I write Shannon a letter confessing my love to her, they'll probably come up to her and say, hey, you better tell Battler that you don't love him back. Like, we can tell that you love him back, but you better tell him that you don't love him back, or we will make his life hell. We will make it hard for him to do anything, and we will attack you on everything. We will fucking kill you. We're on an island. You know, there could be sexual shit going on this island. Nobody would fucking know. It's an island with rich people on it. Granted, it'd be the first time in history anything like that's ever happened. I mean, there's a reason it's fiction for a reason. But it's still cool. People can write amazing stories. Like, I'll tell you this, Higurashi, amazing story. I'm not sure, like, if there could ever be any more additions to Higurashi at this point in 2026. I'm pretty sure the author of all of this stuff has completely retired. They were working on making because technically they did Higurashi, and then they did Umineko. Then they started on a thing called Sakonia or something like that. But apparently, and then my biggest reason for not going into that is, one, we've already read enough when it comes to videos for stuff. But more to the point is this. I've heard they've just, like, permanently gone on hiatus from that, and they're never going to finish that story. So, I don't want to start a story if I can't ever finish it. Then again, I remember at the end of a lot of animes, I'm like, the series is over. I want more. Heck, I still want Mega Man Legends 3. Heck, I still want a new Brave Fencer Musashi game. a Brave Fensu Musashi 3. I wonder if GTA 6 will be any good. Heck, Dot Hack 0 will be interesting when it comes out in 2027. I remember Dot Hack Infection, a really great PS2 game. Heck, Dot Hack Sign, great anime. But it's just... fuck. But it's just, yeah. Shannon probably doesn't remember me, and even if she does, there's no way she actually loved me. And even if she did actually love me, well, it's just because she's on an island, and she's isolated, and doesn't have any other options. And we were just kids, and we're part of a rich family, so she's, you know, it's kind of predatory, the whole me and her having discussions like we've been doing. Whether it's actual dates, whether it's, like, imagine, like, even in George's situation, where he starts taking her out on dates like that, even if it's like, all the rest of your family, I'll disown my family, it's still a situation where many people would view that as predatory. And again, you let me know in the comments your view on it, and honestly, I would say this. My point is this. It's overthinking it. That's my view. It's overthinking it. That end of the day is this. Class does not matter. If you're a fucking millionaire, and you walk into a Burger King, and you see a girl that you think is cute, ask her out. Same way if you're a woman and like you're like some rich, high-powered lawyer woman with giant titties, and you walk into like a McDonald's and there's a cute guy working there. Ask him out. You know, if that's what you want. Now, many people would say both people would have better options, whether it's the rich guy or the rich woman. But I'm just saying this, if you meet someone you like them, you know, you really shouldn't care about that stuff. It should just be, who do you actually want to spend your life with? One, obviously when it comes to romantic relationships, you have to actually be physically attracted to them. But also, you know, it should be somebody you want to spend your life with, like someone you'd actually be proud to be with, someone that you'd be happy to talk to, someone you'd love and cherish, and someone who you'd expect to love and cherish you. You know, it's supposed to be about companionship after all, if you're in any kind of relationship. And here's the thing, I don't even consider, like, not even just marriage. Like I said, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter what sexual orientation you are, and we're not even saying if you get legally married to the person via the church. Because as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to a serious relationship, you don't need to have a government binding contract or some priest to give you fucking approval. Though I do think it is disgusting, any kind of polyamory or open relationships or cheating or orgies or hookup culture or all that shit. I think that's gross. And then again, a lot of people say, I'd probably just say it's gross because I'm ugly and I can't do it. But I'll say this. I would prefer to have a partner, but I would prefer to just have one partner. I've always been in the mindset that monogamy is the best way. Simply put, I consider sex, both the physical act and the emotional part of it, to be sacred. It should be shared with one person. You should be in a relationship with one person. Which sounds odd, because as much harem animes as I've watched. Heck, I remember watching Tenchi Muyo. I had a bit of a crush on Ryoko and Washu and Mihoshi. You guys remember Mihoshi Kuramitsu from Tenchi Muyo? She is cute, but they fucking flanderized that character the same way they did Goku. Everyone was like, what do you mean by flanderize? Simple. Ned Flanders is just supposed to be a dude. He's just supposed to be a dude who occasionally goes to church. He's supposed to be the random, normal person analog to compare to Homer Simpson. And instead, they kept constantly going one-upping themselves by talking shit about the whole him going to church and being overly pious, to the point that they completely flattened him. They did the opposite of character development, and they made him one-dimensional. So rather than, the more they added to it, instead of, you know, making him a more fleshed out character, they just like pounded him in to fit into a little peg hole, you know? Same thing with Goku. Goku's not supposed to be retarded. Okay, he's not supposed to be stupid. Now, it makes sense he doesn't do fucking calculus. He's a kid who grew up in the fucking woods talking to one other human being, and then that other human being was dead, and now Goku's talking to an inanimate object because he's all alone in the middle of the fucking woods. Why would he know calculus? But we're not saying he's stupid. And also, it's not like, oh, he's aromantic. It's that Akira Toriyama did not want his show to be about romance. He wanted an action show with comedy. He was trying to stick to his audience. He wasn't trying to appeal to a broader, modern audience or care what people think. He wanted to make his jokes the way he wanted to say, his action the way he wanted to say, and he wanted to stay with the genre that he wanted to write about. He's not saying there's anything wrong with the other genres, but he wanted to do what he wanted to do. And a lot of people love Dragon Ball because of that. In addition to that is this. He felt that he was not qualified to write a romantic story or a slice of life story, which again, I feel that Akira Toriyama being too hard on himself. I have full confidence that he could have done that if he wanted. But as it is, let's be clear, how much fucking work did he have to put into Dragon Ball Z? When would he have had time to do more? At that point, he would have worked himself into an early grave if he tried to stretch himself that thin. Like, I have full faith in Akira Toriyama to being able to write any kind of story he wants, and I think, I am very grateful for the stories that he has written. I've enjoyed them very much, and I think he's been awesome about stuff. But of course, he is human. Humans do make mistakes. After all, I'm pretty sure he forgot about Launch and Ran Fan and a lot of the early characters. And eventually, just like, at one point he considered killing Chi-Chi off because he was just so fucking annoyed with her. Like, at one point, there was considering an idea of just killing her off permanently. Early in the story, like, before Raditz even shows up. Obviously, not the direction the story went. But, I mean, at the end of Dragon Ball, he was purposely trying to write Chi-Chi in a way to make everyone hate her. Because he was just so fucking annoyed with her. But then, just like, initially, when he ended Dragon Ball, he wasn't ever planning to do a Dragon Ball Z. And, of course, I forget his name, Toyotaro did GT. And keep in mind, even after GT was over, Akira Toriyama had never even thought of the name Beerus or Whis before. All of that stuff had never been thought of. Heck, even years later, they made a movie, like a celebration of this many years since Dragon Ball. And we introduced Tarble and stuff like that. And even then, the ideas of Beerus and all that shit didn't exist. And of course, you can look at Super and you see a lot of parallels with stuff that was in Dragon Ball AF, which was never actually a canon. And of course, GT fell off just because, it just wasn't being as widely received. But I'll just say this. A lot of the early parts of GT were just... It was difficult for some people to get into. I'll say this. I really liked Super Saiyan 4. I thought Super Saiyan 4 was awesome. And I don't know if we'll ever get any more, like, stories. Like, we had the Black Frieza manga arc, and then I really don't know where we go from there. So, and of course, it's kind of odd about carrying on the story now that Akira's dead. I'm like, it's like, should the story continue? Like, I mean, part of me is, like, always gonna be hungry for more, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of like, what about the rest of Berserk? I don't know. But obviously, like with Battler, it's like, from my point of view, it's this. I think he actually meant it. Now, of course, I don't know what direction the author is going in, and the author of this story could write the character to be however they want. After all, that's true of any media, whether it's a movie, or a TV show, or a comic, or a cartoon, or an anime, or novels. At any point, the author can write a character a certain way. And it's not like they wrote the story all in one sitting. It's not like the author of your favorite light novel wrote the entirety of all volumes of the entire light novel in one day. It's not like Akira Toriyama wrote all of Dragon Ball and all of Dragon Ball Z and Super, while Toyotaro's there after he finishes Z explaining all of GT to him in AF in a single lunch over grilled cheese sandwiches. It's not like your favorite TV show. They had all of the episodes written out and planned before they even filmed the first scene. There's many shows in which, like cartoons, I think Family Guy and South Park were famous for this, to where they were like writing the script for each thing week by week basis, which means a lot of times when you were writing the script for one episode, by the time that episode was actually being broadcasted, you still didn't even know, like you were still trying to figure out what the next episode was going to be about. And even then, it might even have just general storyboards and everything, and like, oh, you fill in details later. And again, it's part of the creative process. I'm not knocking it, but I am saying you have to have some understanding of this. Like, take any of the great detective novels. One, the author who wrote the detective novel, like Ellery Queen with The Tragedy of X, or Agatha Christie, and Then There Was None. It's not like Agatha Christie sat down one day in the middle of a field and just wrote the entire book while drinking sweet tea. Like, from the point where she started, like, let's be clear. People act like the process of writing the fucking book took the same amount of time it takes to read the book. Heck, they act like the process that it took Ellery Queen to write every book she ever wrote in less time than it takes to read her shortest one. Let's be clear, an author is a human being. So two things are going to happen. One, their own artistic style is going to change. Like if they're an artist, yes, you could look at any famous artist like Tite Kubo, or I said any famous, and I struggle after one person. I'm just saying this. Take anything that, like any show that you like, that is drawn by one person, or even just a group of people. You can see a certain style aesthetic that is, consistent. But of course, you'll see some changes. So some people do have their own styles. But keep in mind, usually by the time an author or an artist releases their first thing, they've been like, but it's, how often does a person who is an artist release their very first, like, comic book or something they wrote from, like, when their very first year drawing? They've probably been drawing for years. And they probably have plenty of scrapped works that they like, but they don't feel comfortable releasing. Heck, I feel like there's artists out there who look back on their first drawings and are like, oh my god, I was so cringe back then. I was so bad back then. Though honestly, I think that's still amazing. I think it's like, even if you're someone who's improved 1,000-fold, I think it's incredible to look back at how you drew about stuff and not just see it as, oh, I improved from that, but also see like, hey, that picture I drew back then, even though it's much more simplistic than what I drew in the past, what I've drawn even just earlier today, I still think what I drew back then was beautiful. And I'm grateful that I was able to have that opportunity to do that and the improvement I made. But I still think the artist should be proud of their initial works. But the main point is this. Like, the author, like, Yu Hakusho, it's also Hunter x Hunter, and there are multiple versions of Hunter x Hunter, and we might get more Hunter x Hunter in the future. But of course, while there will be consistencies with the art style, there will also be some changes. And with the way an author writes, their way of speaking, their way of telling a story, as well as what they tell the story about. Same thing with movies. Even if you have the same producers made the same movies all the time, well, technology will improve, their own vision about things will improve, their own artistic skill and outlook will change. And of course, and again, when it comes to a story, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a long series of novels, one, they may not know what direction they were going to go in later. They may have new characters. Like, there may be, like, when an author is writing volume 1 of a light novel, there may be characters by volume 7 that they never even knew existed, that are main parts of the story. And then you have to look ahead to, like, volume 30, what that would be like. So a lot of times, an author may not know. So again, this probably varies from author to author, but there's probably some authors that do not know how their own story ends. So say if there's an author who starts, one, their ability to write, their skill at writing, and the types of themes they care about will change. And heck, part of that will also be influenced by the rest of culture. Like, for example, say you're an artist and you're seeing movies that are coming out and new types of music, well, you're going to be influenced by that. Even if you're not trying to take from those things, you're going to watch this new action movie and somehow your character now has aspects of Steven Seagal written into them. Like, even if you're not aware of you doing that. Like, there's people that will try writing they'll try to write brand new fucking lyrics or brand new riffs for something, and they'll find that, oh, that there's there are lyrics like that already written somewhere. Or they'll try to write a riff and then they'll try to play it for someone, and someone's like, hey, that's actually that one thing from Tool. And you're like, what? And then you listen to the what song? And you listen to it the fuck? What do you mean it was already written? Fucking hell. But then again, of course, when it comes right down to it, is this. Music, when it comes to a large aspect, some people could see that as a bit of a mathematical formula. Certain scales, certain rhythms. And obviously if something sounds good and you were led in a certain direction to find a certain rhythm and a certain riff, well then who's to say that someone else wouldn't have also been led in that same direction? It's like saying, if two different people figure out how to invent electricity, they're probably going to figure it out in a very similar way. Then again, if they figure out a different way to do electricity, then when they learn from each other, they can each improve their own designs and grow. There's also the fact this. When an author writes a very long story that takes, if someone writes a novel series, or they write light novels, I don't know, take the author of Reincarnated as a Slime. How did their artistic style, how did their writing style change from their very first time they ever wrote the word Rimuru till when they penned the very last dot of a period when they finished the very last light novel? How did their writing style change? How did their own personal views of their own life and of their story and of the characters in the story change? So an artist, one, may not know what direction they're going. An author may not know what direction they're going in. And two, their skill and ability and even personality that they have will change. And of course, even then, an author might end a novel in a way that initially the person they were when they very first started it wouldn't agree with. Though, of course, the author has to write. But the main point I'm saying is this. An author or an artist does not exist in a vacuum. They are influenced by the passage of time, and they are influenced by everyone else around them. Their own personal lives, what other movies. I would say this. I'd imagine light novels, say someone's writing an anime novel. Well, they're obviously influenced by other anime novels they've read. I would assume that anyone who writes anime novels is a fan of reading them. I would assume anyone who writes a detective novel is a fan of reading them. I would assume, especially nowadays, if you're somebody who wants to write, a horror story, if you're someone who writes horror stories, you probably read them. You've probably been reading them for longer than you've been writing them. And even though you write them now yourself, you probably have an undying love for continuing to read new ones. So even though you're writing ones yourself, you want to read more because you enjoy it, because you love it. And I'm not saying that at any point you're ever going to steal from the other authors, but I will say that they will influence the way you think. That your own brain chemistry and your own personality will change. So it's not that you're going to be copying other people in your works. It's that you yourself are actually evolving and changing because of the other people's works that you're reading. And so you yourself are changing. You're still writing your story. You're not copying from other people. You're still writing your story. But the person you are when you're writing later volumes is not only influenced by other people's novels, but in fact, you yourself have changed as being influenced by your own earlier novels, your own work at writing stories. So in the same regard, not only would, like, say if you're a person who writes horror stories, I would say that you've probably been reading horror stories for longer than you've been writing them, and you probably love reading horror stories, and you want to read more, and you continue to read more. And not only does that stuff influence you, but I would say this: if you're someone who writes horror stories, the next horror story you write, you will be influenced by the last horror story you wrote. Like, I would say, like the author of Umineko, I would say to a large degree, the person this author was, Ryukishi, he's a different person than he was when he wrote the very first chapter of Higurashi. That the process, the journey of writing the entire story of Higurashi changed the type of writer he was. And then the type of writer he evolved into wrote Umineko. And, let's be clear, whether we're talking movies, TV shows, some of these things go on for years and years and years. Like, take the Avengers. They've had how many years since the very first Avengers or Marvel movie? I mean, artistic ideas, personalities, technology, even the society we live in changed, and they influenced that. Heck, it's weird to go back and look at movies from the 90s or the 2000s, let alone movies with dialogues from the fucking 40s. Heck, if you go back and watch animes that were made in the 60s and the 70s, just the way things are drawn, the way people... And again, that was back when everything was completely hand-drawn, and everything's human voice. Though I will admit, I do like that AI can basically make just about anything. I'll say this: I think AI art is amazing, but I also think it's important for people to be able to draw themselves. Even if you'll never be considered a good artist, I think it's important for people to draw themselves. Even if you can play music of anything and have AI write things, I think you should be able to play an instrument yourself with your own hands, even if you're terrible at it, even if you'll never be good at it. I think the process of actually sitting down and playing an instrument, doing math, reading a book, actual human interaction, going for a bike trail walk, I think these are important things for people. And I think that if we lose them as a society, I think that we as a people are going to be going in a very poor direction. I think that even if we have the most advanced... Like, here's the thing. Like, if I know somebody, whether it's a friend, a family member, or even myself, yes, it's cool if I could buy a little robot to draw for me. They could draw amazing things. That's cool. And I could see, like, okay, draw this thing, but this theme, or take this thing from Goku, but draw in the art style of Bleach, and, like, see how that works. Okay, it's more so a curiosity, and it's cool. But I still think you should be able to try to draw things yourself. Even if it's something that you never share with the rest of the class, I think you should still try to draw things yourself. I think it's amazing that we have AI that can do all these things, and it's much faster and much easier, and that's great. And I do think there's no problem with using it, but I still think humans should also try to do it themselves. So my point is this: I think people should use AI art, but I think they should still actually draw things themselves too. I think we should use the tools to make things better, but we should try to actually still refine the skills ourselves. But of course, that's each person's own choice when it comes to that. My point with the Battler thing is this: I think it's just overthinking it. I think the best option would just be direct communication. Yes, Shannon might reject us. That sucks. But it's better we at least just ask her. If we get rejected, then fine. We at least have that definitive answer, instead of both of us just constantly worrying about it for years with no clear answer, because that's just even worse than a rejection. In the same regard, okay, does she only like me because of the Ushiromiya servant thing? Well, simple thing is this: have you ever been an asshole to her? How does she actually talk to you? Part of it is actually trying to understand other people's body language, vocal tones, trying to understand that person as a person. simply put, is this. And part of it is you have to have faith in yourself and faith in her. At that point, you should be like, okay, does she? But at the same point, you're like, just think back in your own interactions with her, what was like talking to her, and make the decision, does this person actually like me? You know, if we met organically, you know, not with all this other bullshit going on, would this person still like me? And again, it'd be kind of hard to do that if you don't have proper self-esteem in yourself or support systems. Again, Sumu died, his family broke up, he got pissed off of Rudolph, there's issues there. But then it's also a question of this. When he initially said that promise to her, it's like, what if he just turned around and said, no, I don't want to wait, and went up to her and started kissing her? It's like, I love you. I don't want to wait a year. I can't wait a year for your answer, Shannon. You know, and goes up to her, gives her a big hug, and starts French kissing her. And, you know, fondling her tits and her ass, okay? One, by many woke fucking psychopaths that fucking judge everything, they would basically call that assault. Even though that's literally how relationships worked for all of human history until like 10 years ago. I mean, at that point, criticizing the way relationships work about that, I mean, at that point, let's be clear. With a lot of the rules people say about, you know, propriety and, you know, power gaps or age gaps and wage gaps and all this shit, let's be clear. If you went by the modern progressive way of looking at things and trying to be like the morally superior justice warrior, like social justice bullshit, saying, well, this is the morally right thing and men were oppressed about this and we need to judge this thing about the patriarchy and, you know, misogyny bullshit. Let's be clear. If the people complaining about the patriarchy stuff had their way and actually, you know, everyone had to follow that line of rules, no one would ever have a relationship ever again. No one. The human race would go extinct. Heck, let's be clear. If everyone waited, like, let's say everyone chose to have children at 30, but let's say no one got married until they're 30 at all. No one started having kids till they're 30. Well, the human race would go extinct. There's also the fact that just you look at the way things are in modern times, like there's like this Casey Simpson dude or something like that, Ricky Dickey, talking about like, you know, the effects of AI and how Gen Alpha can't read and how a lot of teachers in schools are just quitting in droves because, you know, the kids nowadays, they can't focus, they have no desire to learn, they can't read, they can't follow directions, that, you know, it's like the most stressful thing in the world for teachers nowadays. And it's just, it is not a good look for society. Like, he's even said himself, that what happens when all the teachers quit? And even then, if these people, like, if the next generation can't read and they can't think critically and they can barely communicate and they can't understand, you know, reading something and actually having these discussions or understand history or math or even just anything about religion or modern life, how are we going to function as a society? What happens when the people who, or what if like your doctor only passed, or your nurse, or your lawyer, like relied entirely on you know, Chat GPT and stuff and AI? Then again, there's a lot of, I've seen things of other people where it's like, okay, there's people that are actually in businesses that actually had to get like master's degrees and shit and actually had to properly learn everything and actually worked for it before AI. And now that they're doing that job, they're being told, just put it through AI. So it's like, AI is a useful tool, but it's like, I'm going to say it's like 500 more times, apparently. Point being is, what happens when the next generation that can't fucking read? And again, I think a large reason why the next generation's fallen to shit is just because society itself's gone to shit. People, relationships, families. What's the divorce rate? What's the rate of families actually being together as whole? I mean, there's so much nowadays that would have been considered impossible or basically extremely rare and hard to find. That's almost as commonplace as finding water in an ocean nowadays. And I think we got 20 years max as a society, and that's even if there isn't anything apocalyptic. Then again, every time you turn around, there's like, oh, well, there's going to be a pole shift, the second coming of Christ, AIs, microcomputers, robots, 4 different species of aliens. Which again, I'm fine with aliens existing. Just means God created them too. As long as aliens aren't here to kill us all, destroy the world, make my life worse, hurt me, or make me renounce Christ, that's fine. I'd be perfectly fine going to Walmart and I'm like, okay, there's somebody's Tesla humanoid robot that's dressed up as a beautiful woman in a Neko. And there's a robot that's just clearly a fucking robot walking around. And there are aliens buying cereal. And there's a reptilian walking by holding a jug of milk. Quoting Homelander. Main point being is this. The Ushiromi family is not a healthy family in any way, shape, or form. Not only can Battler have his lack of self-esteem and belief in himself, and not only can Battler be like, okay, maybe she doesn't actually like me back. Maybe I upset her. And even if like he turned around and said, I love you, like when he said that promise, what if he just turned around and said, no, you know what, I know I just said that promise, but I can't wait a year. I won't wait a year. I can't wait a year for your answer. I need it now. And then basically, even before she can respond, walks up to her, says, I love you, and just starts making out with her. Holding her close, hugging her, fondling her tits and ass, holding her close, French kissing her. And after like 20 minutes of making out, they sit down and discuss, you know, how they're going to handle the rest of their relationship. I mean, nowadays, let's be clear, there's a lot of people that would say that's predatory in its own way or immature or wrong, but keep in mind, this is how relationships would work for all of human history. Simply put, if you say that this isn't allowed, then literally the human race goes extinct. Because at the end of the day is this. And then again, there's always things with every group, like churches and stuff. It's like, want to have issues on different things and different propriety things. Like, and again, it just feels like, you see this especially in the whole leftist area, is like constant virtue signaling. Constant, just everything's done performative. You see that in some churches too, to where what they're doing and saying, they don't actually love God. They're not good people. They're not morally superior. They just want to be seen that way. Like, they just care what everyone thinks about them. They care about status. They care about, well, everyone looks at me like I'm this holy, righteous, pious person. Oh, I am praising God really loudly. And the pastor's happy about that, and I give my money to the pastor. You know? That's the sort of stuff there. It's like, at the end of the day is this. Everything's performative. Everything's just like, and at which point a lot of preachers just care about, okay, what gets money in my church? What makes me look good? What makes my church look good? At which point it's not about God. It's not about being a good person. It's not caring about the individuals. It's just about, how do I make money for my business and how do I look good? What do people think about me? How can I attain material wealth? How can I have a comfortable life? What do people think about me? At that point, it's like, for some churches, God isn't their God, it's the fucking preacher. Or just, they're going there for a fucking experience. Like it's a fucking rock concert. But at the same time, it's like, some people go to some churches like they fucking hate themselves too. Like, oh, it's just, they're like, both ends of that spectrum are fucking shitty. Either you have people that are being performative, they're just doing stuff to look good in front of others, or they're doing stuff out of just outright self-hatred, and they're just punishing themselves. And they're just overly extreme religious zealots when it comes to that, who are just, their mind is just full of just self-hatred and anger. And it's just, no. Just Like, obviously, you should be strong and fervent in the spirit. But there's a difference between, and like, obviously, yes, you shouldn't be like just, oh, your lukewarm faith would just, you know, sit in that pew and that's it, and you just, whatever, forget about the God the rest of the time. But at the same time, you also shouldn't be in the other fucking extreme that you're going around and like, well, God doesn't like shellfish, burning down Long John Silver's. Like, obviously, fuck, what the fucking hell? But of course, everyone's got different views on certain things, and obviously some people would have different views on what they would consider fucking insane. But it's just, there's a lot of people out there in every walk of life that I listen to the way they are about things, and I'm like, you know, I don't agree with that. And again, it doesn't mean I have to condemn them necessarily, but I will, you know, stand against them making decisions that would harm me or harm someone else. And also, above all, is this. Okay, other people can believe however they want, but as long as it doesn't affect other people, it doesn't hurt other people, and more than that is this. Yes, they can be who they want to be, but it doesn't mean they have authority to judge and condemn me. But everyone's their own thing, and again, there really isn't a reason to fucking care. And a lot of times, like, well, even if I don't fucking care, well, they still want to fucking walk up to me and talk shit to me, which, you know, is unpleasant. But at the end of the day is this. What's the best way to deal with that? By just not interacting with those people. Like, if you find groups of people that are bad about this thing, now it's another thing if you're actively trying to have debates about it, but that's if you feel like it. And even then, that's if you feel like it. And whether you make the decision yes or no on that, you can always change your mind on that. But then the day is this. No matter what you do about it, I think you should be respectful about it. But at the end of the day is this. A lot of it's just, why? What's the fucking point? Don't care. It's like, there's other shit I would rather do. I mean, I would rather just do the shit I want to do. I don't want to have some fucking deal with other people. Unless they're actively some fucking issue. And again, part of it's just like, okay, trying to understand myself. And also I can, you know, at least guide other people in the right direction. Like, hey, what's my advice to people? Read as much as you can. That's my advice to everybody. Read as much as you can. Heck, beyond that, when it comes to modern politics and stuff, I would say watch Asmongold. Watch Kirsche Verstaal. Go watch her videos. I'd recommend Kirsche Verstaal. Listen to that person. Heck, I think it'd be cool if they made like a giant, like 6 foot tall LCD screen at the White House, and Kirsche could just like do a job as press secretary wirelessly via Wi-Fi, so she wouldn't even have to be in the same state as wherever the conferences were. Then again, I still want to see a collaborative video between Kirsche Verstaal and Alex Jones. Like, I want them to play Halo together. I want, when the new Halo campaign Evolved to come out, I want Kirsch, Alex Jones, heck, even Asmongold and Smugglana, all 4 of them just to play Halo co-op together. Everyone's like, this is weird, whatever. If you think it's weird, this is the first video of mine you've ever seen. Every video I make is cringe. I'm getting distracted. Point is this. Battler might have had concerns about, okay, 1, does Shannon even like me? 2, if she does like me, what are those feelings from? But even if he comes to the decision of, okay, Shannon actually likes me, I love her back, her feelings are independent of the circumstances that we're in, and that, you know, we both love each other and want to be together. Here's the other thing he has to think about. At that moment, he's like 12 or 13 years old. And during that year, he's thinking about it. You know, he's like 13. And his family's a bunch of shit, and Asumu dies, and he has the major issue with his dad. And then he goes live with his grandparents, who fucking hate Rudolph, and we don't really know how they are about things. And keep in mind, it's not like he never came back or was in his 30s. No, it's he came back when he was 18, and when his grandparents were dead. And he even admits, like, to Jessica early on, that yeah, Shannon was his first love, and he'd never been with anyone at all his entire life, and he stayed alone, and he's actually a little bit upset that her and George are getting together, but he's happy for them, and he's like, okay, Shannon will be happier with George than she ever could be for me. Because after all, from Battler's point of view, he's like, hey, I love Shannon, but I want her to be happy. And obviously, you know, she's better off that way. So she probably never loved me at all like that. And if she did, she probably just stopped. And, you know, it's for the best for her. And after all, if there's a point where writing her a letter, like, okay, does she actually love him? Does she hate him? Is she even still there? Would I get her in trouble? Would someone rip up the letter? But even then, whether it's writing her a letter, coming back in person, even when he's 15, here's the thing. Realism. Men have to plan for the future. 1, if he's relying on the Ushiromias for money, he has to go and deal by their, you know, financial authority on that. And also he's still a minor at that point. So what power does he have? So is Shannon. So he doesn't have legal power at that point. So once he sits down and thinks about it, he's like, okay, I can't actually do anything until I'm older. And even then, if I do it when I'm older, well, I'll still have to do it my own financial way. So it's basically, I'd have to come up to Shannon like, hey, Shannon, 1, we legally can't be together until, you know, I'm 18. Otherwise, you know, my parents can just tell me no. And I can't come rescue you. So it's more like Battler truly believed everything he said and thought it and was true, but he was being very idealistic. And then once he like came down to brass tacks and was like, how would I actually do it? And he's like, oh shit, how could I ever do this? I mean, how would I be able to provide for her? I mean, how would I even be able to get her off Rockenjima? I mean, so it's like more so thinking about the practicality. How would I actually do anything? I mean, even George, who is 2 years older than Battler and has some more financial independence to himself. He's a couple years older and he had to wait years to be able to get things ready for Shannon. And keep in mind, George started off basically flirting with all of the servants. And here's the thing, Shannon initially was staying away from George because, well, she was in love with Battler. And George was basically going around flirting and outright abusing the authority he had of being an Ushiromiya to flirt and stuff with all of the servants. And in the end, what made him more interested in Shannon was the fact that she wasn't really responding to him, so he chased her harder. And then he had like an epiphany where he was like getting hard on himself, and so he chose to try to like build up his material wealth and stuff in order to try to impress her. And then wants to like, you know, propose to her. But even then, he had to wait till he was like 20, if not 21, to be able to do that. So he had to wait like what, 21? He was like 21 years old? He had to wait all those years? So he still had to wait for years while cashing and taking Shannon on dates. And keep in mind, he was of the mindset that he was going to have to outright literally disown Ava and Hideyoshi in order to do that. Battler is several years younger and has no money or anything. And it's not an issue of like, okay, I need to build stuff up to impress her. It's like, I need to build stuff up so she doesn't die of starvation. So it's not only the issue of like, okay, would she actually like me as a person? Does she actually love me? Would she reject me? Am I pushing too hard on this? But it's also an issue of this. 1, people of all ages, especially when it comes to someone you actually find super attractive and you're in love with, that's very embarrassing and it's very anxious. Like it's something to be a lot of anxiety over. So of course you're gonna be very nervous. After all, it's not like he's like Rudolph. Rudolph was a fucking player, just like fucking every woman he saw. Whereas Battler, even at 18, hasn't dated anyone, and the closest he's ever been to a relationship was Shannon, and he is a hopeless romantic. He is very sweet. He actually does truly love people and value. That's why he's so pissed off about Rudolph, the whole Asumu dying remarriage thing, is because to him, things like friendship, family, and romantic love are extremely personal. And it's like Kaoru saying to Shinji, like, okay, your heart is like glass. It's very fragile, but it's largely what makes it so valuable, makes it so precious. I mean, after all, this whole point you see of Battler is like that he's so emotionally strong about, one, caring about people getting hurt, and two, about blaming people in the story early on, like for like accusing this person of this bad thing and accusing this person of this thing, and a family turning against each other. So he's just extremely, a sensitive romantic poet. Think like Virgil from Dante's Inferno. Okay? So at the end of the day, and that's also largely what brought Shannon and Battler together. They both actually have very similar feelings. That's also why Shannon is in so much pain at this point, because the same way Battler thinks about stuff, she thinks about it too. And it definitely, and of course, you might say again, oh, is it Battler's fault for coming back after 6 years? After all, Shannon's moved on, and but keep in mind at this point, he's just turned 18, if not 18 going on 19. He's at that point interested in being with her, but now he finds out like she's already going to be dating George. So he's like, so at that point you even hear early on that, Battler is remorseful of that he's like, oh shit, I lost my chance, Shannon moved on. At which point he just lets that be. After all, if he like threw a tantrum about that, like, no, she's mine, it's like people would say, is that possessive, is that abusive? But even then, at that point, it's like, that's not very fair to her feelings. Like, if he really loves Shannon at that point, well, I mean, if she's already moved on, is that really kind to her feelings? And everyone's like, you have these just things about like what's right, what's wrong. Does this person actually like me? And even then, even if this person does like me, and it's like, okay, how do we live? Like, what happens to the rest of the family? How do we go about our daily life? How will we get married and all that? So obviously, it's a big issue there, and there's a lot of... But keep in mind, it's like this. He comes back at 18, and I'll say this. I would say if Shannon and George didn't get together, then Shannon and Battler... Shannon would have to say, hey, Battler, I love you. And Battler would be like really embarrassed, and he would have difficulty articulating his words at first, and he'd probably stammer a bit, but he'd be like, yeah, I love you too. And she'd be like, well, you said you come for White Horse, and he's like, I thought you couldn't feel the same way about me, and also it's like, I don't really know how I'll take care of you. Like, we won't have help for the rest of my family, and they're kind of assholes too. So it's like, I can't give you anything other than myself. At which point Shannon says, that's fine. I love you for you. We'll figure everything else out. And then everyone's happily ever after. Now, of course, yes, the issues of the emotional turmoil on Shannon are bad, and Battler is at the central part of it. But again, Battler is not the fault of the mass murder thing. And again, I don't blame Shannon for moving on with George, even though, had she not done that, it would have been much easier for her and Battler to get together and be fine. After all, it's not like they were really old enough to get married at that point anyway. They had to wait till they're 18 to be able to, have legal authority to not... Otherwise, let's be clear. Let's say George is 17 and says that he wants to marry Shannon. Well, Ava and Hideyoshi have legal authority to literally just tell him no, and then can just send him off to like a boarding school or something. So at which point, he doesn't have any actual ability. It'd be like if you're in the Baki universe, you're not going to go up and slap Yujiro in the face. Not unless you're planning to have that fucking fight. But it also doesn't mean you should expect to win that fight if you only took like one karate class. So you have to be realistic. And that's the thing, a lot of times people, and I, again, feel that this largely applies to men, is that you understand in a situation, you have to be the one responsible for things. If you get a relationship, you have to be responsible for that. And if you're not, people die. People will starve to death. You need to work hard, you deal with this, and also you have to consider, okay, is there going to be a war? Is there going to be an apocalypse? Is there going to be a fucking pole shift? Like, it's like, maybe you shouldn't marry the people if everyone, like, there's going to be World War III and civil war and discourse and aliens landing. It's like, how are you going to raise a family in that? And obviously I'm going in every extreme direction possible. But I mean, what about the people in World War II? Like people living in Germany and France. I mean, would that really be the greatest time to be getting married and having kids? And again, I'm not blaming the people in those situations. I'm just saying, would they feel very encouraged? I'm not blaming the people who lived in Europe at that time. I'm saying it wouldn't be very encouraging for them, would it? It's kind of like people in the past. Like, okay, you have less access to books, you have less access to medicine, penicillin doesn't exist. I mean, heck, I'll say this. I'm very grateful I live in an era of anime and air conditioning. And Pepsi. So, I mean, I really can't blame people in the past for living a certain way when it comes to certain things, because they didn't have anime and air conditioning. You know, I have a lot of blessings that they didn't have. Heck, it's like I can't blame people back in medieval ages for drinking alcohol more than people do nowadays, because here's the thing. One, you don't have clean water for the most part, so you either drink the alcohol or you die. Two, okay, you don't have Tylenol. You don't have Advil. If you suddenly have a migraine or you sprain your back and you're in pain, okay, I mean, you can't take a Tylenol or an Excedrin, so how do you treat your migraines? How do you treat the flu? How do you treat a broken knee or an arrow to the knee? You can't just take a Tylenol. So at that point, I don't blame someone for drinking some rum or some shit when, you know, you don't have Tylenol. Or you have a fever and it's like, okay, you need some sort of painkiller, right? But painkiller, does it exist? Acetaminophen's not a thing yet. So rum and whiskey, it's going to have to do. And in general, like I said, alcohol is one of those things, like if you're someone who drinks alcohol, just know your limit on that. Like obviously, one, don't drink so much that it causes you harm. And two, don't get drunk driving and shit. Like understand how it affects you. Understand how it affects your physical body, like in terms of balance, and your judgment. And understand for what purpose are you drinking. Like it'd be one thing, okay, you drink a little bit socially, it's fine. But obviously you're not doing well drink socially if you drink so much you fucking black out or some shit. At that point, I would say this. If you drink so much to do that, then the question is, what was your motivation for that? So, I mean, at that point, if like you drink so much blackout drunk because you're in World War II and you just saw 1 million people die, well, I understand. That's traumatic, and I'm not going to blame someone in that situation. I'm like, yeah, that's fucked up, and it sucks that therapists didn't exist back then. I mean, the world hadn't invented psychiatrists yet. Everyone's like, you're being a facetious asshole about this. I know, but you guys get the point. After all, I mean, how many times was it seen as common to mock soldiers from World War I and World War II by being emotionally upset at what happened in the war? Heck, there's a lot of people that have mental breakdowns of that stuff, even after Vietnam War, and flashbacks and PTSD and stuff. And again, yeah, it's a fucked up situation. What's the solution? One, a better world where that shit doesn't happen in the first place. You know, I would say for anyone who went to Vietnam, like maybe a situation where the Vietnam War was never necessary to begin with. But even then, you know, maybe just take better care of veterans, maybe better psychological help, maybe just treat people better. Like if you realize, hey, this person's been through something traumatic, just be nicer to them, you know? I don't know. Point is, though, yes, Battler is a very emotional core point for Shannon, for Sayo Yasuda. Very core issue. Means a lot. Very emotionally troubling, and of course, there are circumstances around it that, explain, like, okay, maybe Battler just didn't think she would like him back. Maybe thought that it was taking advantage of her. Maybe it's like considering, okay, is it improper? Am I pushing too hard? Am I being like my dad, where he was with women, by pursuing her like that? Is it right of me? Am I being wrong? Is it predatory for me to want to date Shannon? Is it predatory for me to want to marry her and have a loving family and raise children with her and love her for the rest of the time? Like, what's morally right? What's good? What's bad? What's best for her? What should I do? And even then, even if I want to be with her, how do I pay for things? How do I take care of her? How do I deal with the rest of the assholes in our family? Like, what should I do? And even if I know what the right thing to do is, how do I do it? But yeah, so obviously that's a big issue. And like I said, Balor's probably concerned, okay, even if I do love Shannon, okay, am I going to be able to, like, what do I do? Come back the next year, we're 13 years old, and I say, hey, I come back and say, I'm going to come back in White Horse to get you. And I say, I love you, and I want, you love me too, and we want to be together. But also, we're 13. I can't go, how am I going to do this? Where are we going to live? How am I going to take you out of here? Even if he's realized that and thought of that ahead of time, he's like, okay, if I come to her and say that, and even if I'm like, oh, fuck it, you know what, I love her so much, I'm going to do the right thing, I'm going to do what I want to be with her. Okay, but you have to be realistic about this. Is anybody going to let him do that? Or the moment he tries to do that, by that point he's just got to say, hey, come back, what's your answer? Oh, you do? Okay, well, I love you too. However, we need to exchange promises. There's a landmark in Japan that if we're ever separated, that we will meet each other at this one landmark. And if not this place, and if not this place. And we will find ways to contact each other. Even if we had to put ads in a newspaper trying to find each other. Because at the end of the day is this, I love you, Shannon, and I want to come for you on a White Horse, but I feel like they're going to purposely separate us, and I feel like they're not going to let us be together. So I feel like they'll take us away from each other. So we're going to try to be together, or we might even say, hey, we love each other, but we're going to wait until we're old enough to have legal authority to fight against the people who would unjustly try to be abusive to you. The base say, hey, these rich people might abuse their authority, so we're going to wait until you're older, so you're 18, so you can be your own person and an adult, so you can make that choice. Basically, we want to be together, but you're not able to make that decision yet because of abusive people over you. So we're going to wait until you can have the legal authority to be able to do what you want. And then we can live happily ever after. And again, I can't promise you everything. I might have to, renounce all the money and wealth in this entire family. And I might just be working at a grocery store while we live in a tiny hovel. It's just, I want you to understand, like, I don't want to try to lie to you, Shannon. I don't want to say, oh, we're going to be rich and I'll find some way to make a business successful. I'll try, but I can't guarantee that future. And even if I could guarantee the future, it's going to be difficult on the way there. I can't guarantee the world's going to be perfect. The world's not a dream. It's not a fantasy. We have to deal with real life. It's not like I have magic, Shannon. It's not like we have a golden witch like Beatrice to help bless us to have the money to be able to do what we want. We're going to have to struggle with things. And I can't promise you every comfort and luxury in the world. All I can promise you is that I love you. And I'll be by your side. And I'll be loyal to you. And I'll love you. And I'll wake up with the same thought I have every day when I go to bed. That I love you very much. And I'm grateful for you. And I wouldn't trade you for all the gold of the world. Even 10 tons of it. Now, obviously, again, that is the way the story is. However, while it is definitely a definitive, very valid emotional reason for both of them to be upset, with or without the involvement of George in any way, Whether he's more or less involved, whatever. Let's be clear. Battler is not the cause of the tragedy. The fact that I'm pretty sure Kenzo becomes sexually abusive to Shannon at some point. And the fact that, you know, Shannon finding out that, hey, you were actually an Ushiromiya. You've been through severe bodily injuries. You might not even live to old age because of the injuries from being on a cliff. You were actually born a boy. You were also raised as a servant in an orphanage by the family you were supposed to be born into. So all of these people treating you like shit as their fucking slave, they're actually supposed to be your family. And that if they had actually taken care of you, they would all be loving you and you'd be the person in a position of privilege and authority. That you're actually supposed to be the heir to all of this shit. Also, you're an incest baby who was born because your grandpa Kenzo fucked a mistress and then fucked the daughter of the mistress, and he is both your dad and your grandpa. And you find out that you are blood related. Also, you've developed schizophrenia and split personalities, and your personality as canon is actually in a relationship with Jessica. So you're in a relationship with Jessica and with George, planning to get married to George, but you're also considering the idea of getting married to Jessica as canon. That's also why you can't, like, if you go off and get married with George, you can't simultaneously exist on the island as canon with Jessica because you're the same person. In the same regard, if you wind up getting with, you know, Battler, you know, you can't be with George and Jessica. But so not only does that make that impossible, I mean, heck, I'm pretty sure given enough time, eventually Maria and Beatrice might even get into a relationship at that point. And I'm pretty sure Kenzo was banging Shannon dressed as Beatrice at one point. So it's like, okay, the elderly dude, who is the head of the super rich Ushiromiya family, not only is raping you, dressed as his deceased mistress, but you actually are the grandchild of that deceased mistress. The super rich dude had a mistress that was, you know, a secret wife, who then got pregnant with a child. Then his mistress died. He named the child the same name as his mistress, and then raped his mistress to have you. And then your mom dies, and then he gives you to the wife of his eldest son, who then throws you off a fucking cliff. And then you get, like, your back and your genitals, internal organs fucked up. And then you get raised in a fucking orphanage. And then you get brought back and be raised by the fucking family that threw you off a fucking cliff. And then you get raped by your grandpa dad in the clothes of your dead grandma. Mom and, because they wore each other's clothes and stuff. And then you find out that everyone you've ever loved, you find out, okay, I have schizophrenia and I have split personalities. And every person that all of my personalities have ever loved, like I am 20 different people. And in every single person I am, every person that every version of me has fallen in love with is related to me by blood. And that my relation to Battler and to George and Jessica and Maria, but most of all, my relationship to Battler is that I am his cousin and his uncle. And that I'm 3 years older than I thought I was, so that I'm actually older than Battler. So again, yeah, the issues with, you know, the romance thing and, you know, the promise, yes, it's an issue. But that's not the cause of the mass murder thing. It's the cause of the, you know, the history of the fact that the person was thrown off a cliff, raised in an orphanage, treated like shit, and just lots of, you're finding out that you're an incest baby, and you're being raped by the person that is your incestuous dad grandpa in the clothes of your deceased mother. I don't think that's good for a person's mental health. I don't think that's good for your... But then again, the thumbnail I'm going to use for this is, again, dark humor. Does it mean we here at Team 4-Star, condone child violence? No. But we do think it's a core element of what makes this entire story make sense. Because, after all, Kraus and Rudolph and Ava and Rosa still worry about being punched by Kinzo as an elderly person. Kraus still imagines it and thinks about it, even though Kinzo is dead and he knows it. Heck, at the end of story 5, Erika Furuto was saying that Natsui was dressing up as Beatrice and sleeping with him. Which, was she? I don't even know anymore. But then again, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if, maybe Kinzo fucked Rosa and Maria is actually Kinzo's daughter, grandchild. Also, since Rudolph was fucking so many people, how did he not have more kids? And then you have the whole issue of Ava and Hideyoshi, like what's going on there? And then it's very noticeable that Ava has split personalities, that Kinzo has some issues, and talks to himself. It's also noticeable that Maria is having psychological problems. Now, I'm not sure about Jessica and George at this point. I don't know. There's also the issue of supernatural beings like Doctor Strange and Doctor Who and getting involved. Beatrice, Bernconstell, Lambda Delta, Aurora, Augustus, Featherina. I don't remember. And we don't really know what's going on with Genji and Nanjo and Goda and Kumasawa. Or the other servants from Fuakuen. The Sisters of Purgatory. The Stakes. Or the Cheshire Bunnies. But, and here's the thing. Initially I was making comments about Natsui being Tyler Durden. Because Natsui is definitely even though she's not in blood, I don't think she's blood related to anyone. I don't know. But it's just, she's showing symptoms of having, hallucinations and delusions and split personalities and mental health issues and schizophrenia. And then, well, Rudolph's got major fucking issues that are too much to count, which, keep in mind, that's the dad that, Battler is avoiding, which is why he's not coming back for Shannon, is to avoid Rudolph, which, honestly, Rudolph, out of all the people, is the worst. And then there's the fact this, we really don't understand Asumu as a person, or what her parents are like, who now have custody of Battler. So, again, we have more people that have legal authority over Battler, so Battler has to wait until he's 18 in order to be able to have legal authority over himself. After all, if he doesn't at least have that legal authority over himself, how is he even supposed to come for Shannon at that point? So, at that point, what power does he have over anything, to do anything? And then, of course, Kairi is a good person, I can tell, but most part of this, she does have some very precarious things going on with her family, particularly her sister and her parents. That's kind of fucking insane. But main point, I would say this. What's the cause of the Zero murders? I wouldn't blame Battler in the same regard I wouldn't blame Shannon even. And I wouldn't blame Sayo Yasuda or Beatrice. I would blame Kinzo and the circumstances of this. Now, obviously, is it good for a person to go dual Winchesters, shotgun spree, rock down Rokkenjima? No. No, that is not a good thing. Mass murdering a bunch of people, very bad. But you can at least understand. Again, that's kind of like the whole thing with Homelander. I feel like Homelander was literally written to be as much of a jerk just because the author fucking hated Homelander. It's like you write a character. It's like, imagine if you just constantly shit on Yamcha. And everyone's like, well, Yamcha's a piece of shit. Yeah, obviously because the author fucking hates him. But here's the thing. You could just as easily rewrite the story, one, where Homelander wins, like, write as a fucking analog horror, or write as he fucking wins. You could write as Homelander wins the fight. After all, like, he took the V1, even before the V1, he should have been able to overpower everyone, let alone the bullshit of Kimiko getting that one power. But heck, imagine if just Soldier Boy just showed up. I mean, I remember seeing an AI thing with that. He grabs Cobra, hey, give him to me. And he just, like, takes Homelander, and he locks Homelander. After all, Homelander's got the V1. So what if Homelander's like, what if Soldier Boy shows up and he takes Homelander and he just locks Homelander in the cryo thing and says, hey, and I remember seeing an AI thing of this, I'll see you in 100 years, John. Right now, the world's not ready for you and you're not ready for it. We're both going to be able to live for fucking ever. I'm not ready to be a father to you yet, and you're not ready for this world, and this world isn't ready to forgive you after everything that happened. Even in the situation that he doesn't have powers anymore. At that point, he's like, lock Homelander, lock John in the cryo thing for 100 years. And then wake him up later. But at the end of the day is this. Now, that being said, whether we're talking the comic version, the cartoon version, or the TV version, Homelander was a monster. He did horrible things, he abused his powers, and he murdered people. That's wrong and irredeemable and fucked up. However, at the end of the day, who's really responsible for this? Stan Edgar. Vought. And at the end of the day is this. They're able to go free, and they're able to make more people like Homelander again. It's just they'll make them not as powerful, but they'll be just as fucking assholes to them. Simply put is this. Yes, Homelander made decisions in every version. And again, you could rewrite the story at any point. Have Homelander decide to go in a different moral direction. Or have him just not go fucking insane. And again, that's another thing is like him being insane, whether it's the later thing in season 5 where he thought he was God. You know, he was actually hallucinating that shit. So he was actually criminally, legally insane. There's people that commit murder in real life who get let off because they're deemed not being able to be held responsible for their crimes. Heck, in the original version of the comic, you know, Homelander never actually did anything to Becca. That was someone else dressed up as him, a clone, who then gaslit Homelander into going insane. Still, all versions of them were bad. But here's the thing, at the end of the day is this. Was there really a lot going on that would steer Homelander in a direction that wasn't that? Like, I feel in the same way if you'd hold Homelander responsible, then you have to hold Shannon responsible. And again, is it right for what she does? No, she shouldn't fucking shoot everyone with the fucking guns. But again, I don't think the cause of the tragedy is Battler coming back. I think the cause of the tragedy is, you know, the emotional shock that you're an incest baby that was thrown off a fucking cliff. And that you're related by blood to all of the people that you love. That all the people that you want to have a romantic relationship with, you're actually related to them. In multiple ways, in an incest baby tree. So, yeah, I think that's more the issue. I think if it wasn't for any of that, and everything was, like, all of that tragic backstory shit didn't exist, either Shannon would just marry George, or break that off and get together with Battler. Be like, hey, either her and George together, or if that doesn't work out, you know, if George wasn't a thing, or she just sees Battler, hey, Battler. But at that point, yeah, it's a bit of a convoluted thing, but it's, again, I think it's not Battler showing up that causes the problem. I think it's, you know, the seriously fucked up shit happening because of Kinzo. That's the problem. And I think it's also largely the fact that everybody in the Ushiromi family, all the adults, are fucking abusive assholes. Again, refer to the thumbnail for this video. Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. But yeah, as far as Homelander, like, you could have wrote him, and again, he doesn't have to, like, imagine if he didn't kill Firecracker. Imagine if, like, he didn't go fucking insane. Like, there's a lot of things he did. Like, there's, yes, he's basically a child in an adult body with superpowers. He's immature. He has no anger control, and he doesn't have any empathy, or any. He does horrible things. He murders people. But the question is this: what didn't he not spend his entire childhood locked in a prison complex, being tortured and isolated? He had no parents, he had no normal family, and Vought even purposely states, outright verbatim, repeatedly, that John Homelander was purposefully, psychologically, professionally conditioned to have all of the faults that he has. His emotional neediness, his insecurity, his need for praise, his need to power, his need to be violent. After all, he was raised to be a weapon. He was raised to be a product. He was their pharmaceutical. He was constantly conditioned, hey, you need to get up the points here. You need to impress people with this. You're a celebrity. Your life depends on this. It's your reason for existing. And one, you are conditioned from birth that you have to be this way. And you're also told, even as an adult, that, hey, if you don't fall in line and pursue this shit, you're disposable. So your very worth as a human being is dependent on it. Your very survival is dependent on it. At which point it then means John Homelander's survival is dependent on him being as needy as possible, as him being as shallow and superficial as possible, and him being as violent as possible. Simply put, John is raised to be a weapon. If he suddenly grows up and decides he wants to be a pacifist or respect human life, after all, how many of the other heroes voiced concerns about how superficial and flashy the costumes were, or about how the Hollywood shit where they were like, oh, I'll cast you in this movie this, and we want to care about the public's opinion on this, and the heroes are like, hey, I just want to help people. How often were they constantly told, oh, we'll just have to let you go. We'll have to go in a different direction. We won't fund you then. At every single turn, Homelander was conditioned that way, not just from birth, but even within the business itself of Vought, that you need to be this way. To the point that if he wasn't a violent, homicidal maniac, they wouldn't have had a use for him. It's just, again, Sensui from Chapter Black. You can't raise someone to be a monster. You can't bring a man up and tell him he has to be a soldier, and then condemn him for being the very thing you trained and conditioned him to be. I mean, you can't take a dog and just beat it every day. And when the dog suddenly turns around and bites you, say, oh, this is a bad dog, I need to put it down, it bit me. Well, yeah, you beat it every day. You neglect it, you yell at it all the fucking time, and you fucking beat it. Of course it fucking bit you. Of course it's not sociable. You take a dog raised in a fucking kennel in complete isolation, and take it out of him and just are fucking abusive and negligent all the time, and literally only use it and condition and you Pavlovian reward it for killing other dogs and being violent as a weapon for you. It's not going to be emotionally stable, and you're the one to blame for that, Vought. Like, at every turn. And again, no matter what, is this. Even if you take an emotionally stable human being and give them powers, I mean, a lot of people would become corrupted by that. And even then, even if it's not an issue of getting powers, if you're a person who has powers and you're legitimately trying to use them to help people, because you're the person in positions of power, you're going to be seeing horrible things happen. you're going to go through additional trauma and stuff's going to start changing you. I mean, it's the whole issue of, like, say, Batman and all that shit. But even then, let's be clear. You can say, okay, you have powers, you just want to help people. But here's another question. You have the power to go kill people. Okay, wouldn't you go kill Osama bin Laden? And then, of course, there's always the issue of people will be, you know, selective judgment on things. For example, it's like, take, you know, Khomeini, the guy of Iran when he died. For decades, this guy is seen as, you know, worse than Hitler. You know, up there with Stalin and Mao. Heck, people even comparing him as worse than Putin. But then the moment somebody causes that guy to die, that the person who, you know, Trump went against him, you know, like, oh, he must have been a saint then, because, you know, literally just because Trump's the one to do it. It's like, excuse me, you're defending someone who's actually worse than Hitler because you don't like the person who stopped him. And again, every reason you have against him is literally stuff that the TV told you. It's just, it's fucking crazy that you're literally upset at a person because of a bunch of lies that a TV told you, and then the person you're upset at literally does a good thing, helps people, and stands against people that are actually monsters, and then you start defending the monsters because of the person who... And it's just like, what? And again, it's the thing I was saying earlier. Constant purity tests, constant virtue signaling, constant just... Like, everything's like, you have to be perfect about this and this and this and this, and everyone's like hateful, judgmental, everything's performative, everything is just... I don't know. I was thinking a word for that. I can't remember it. I don't know. It's just... I feel like there was a correct word used for that, and I can't remember it. I was going to say it, and I just... Short-term memory sucks. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I was going to say something with that. I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm tired. I feel like I want to try to remember, but I can't. Fuck. But it just seems like a lot of stuff, it's just people are just... It's selective outrage. That it's just... People act like they're morally superior, and they choose to be angry about this and that or that. And it's just... It's just selective outrage. It's just... They act like they're pious about shit. But they'll be selectively angry about things that there's no reason to be angry about, and yet they'll outright not only be not upset about something that they should be angry about, but they're just fully supportive of it. And it's just... It's like they have no concept of, like, I don't know, remembering things in terms of they'll support one thing the one way, but then not the other way. And it's just, it makes no logical sense. It's like, if you're applying logic to it, it doesn't make sense. But if you're applying, okay, they're judging this one thing based on this thing, not because of this logical reason or because it's right or wrong, but because this fits a narrative, this makes them look good, this will help them fit in with this one group, this is the socially accepted thing. I mean, it's just the craziest fucking shit. like people wanting to, like, suicidal empathy, wanting to destroy their own society. You go around and you condemn men as being predators, but then you literally import people that have actual criminal legal records of having committed horrible atrocities against people. But you're going to take their side just because the TV said so, and because you hate the people that have never done you wrong. And you act like you're oppressed by people that have never done anything wrong to you. And then you're going to actively support people who are going to kill you. And then, of course, it's just the fact the same people that will say these horrible things, they'll say they're the people that are good, kind people. And yet they're the ones calling for violence all the time. I think the best way to put it is, the people, they don't call you a Nazi because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can be justified to murder you. I mean, take after Charlie Kirk died. How many people out there were just fucking cheering it? When it's just like, it was just a dude having civil discussions with people. And he was murdered in public. Like, and not only is it cheered on, but of course, like, okay, am I pro-gun rights? Yes. But I think they largely use self-defense. But, and you have people, like, wanting to disarm people. It's like, but again, it's selective. It's like you want to disarm the people that want to defend themselves, but you want to arm people who are going to hurt people. You're antagonizing good people as if they're criminals. But then you're supporting criminals as if they're saints and wanting to give them every power to murder the innocent. And then when an innocent person is just going out like, oh, this person's just having civil discussions, he gets murdered in public, and you say, well, he had it coming because he's a Nazi. It's like, no, he's not. And in fact, you guys are the Nazis. Because, I mean, here's the thing. Like, a lot of people say they are against Nazis, but they don't even understand the Axis and allies from World War II. They don't even understand the brown shirts of Mussolini. Usually, the concept of fascism is censorship, threats, intimidation, violence, not letting people speak their mind. You know, that's fascism. Fascism is usually censorship and demonization of anyone who is against the party. Complete control of information. Basically, censoring anyone who you disagree with, taking a platform away from people, cancel culture, wanting to, like, oh, this person has an opinion you disagree with? Well, let's get them in trouble with their job. Let's make them lose their income. Let's let them lose their sponsors. Let's try to have them criminally charged for that. Let's threaten to murder them and their families. Well, how dare you have this Nazi opinion? You know, you go out and you say these Nazi things, but it's like, it's not a Nazi opinion. It's just having civil discussion. And usually the people claiming that other people are racist are usually the most racist people. The people saying, oh, we're the people that are all love and kindness are usually saying the most hateful fucking shit. And heck, there's people that say they support gay rights and shit. But they'll be the first people to start saying, like, oh, you have an issue with women? You must be gay. Now, granted, maybe a bad example for me, just because I became gay. Because my experiences with women were so fucking horrible. So at the end of the day is this. What do I want in a relationship? Someone who's kind to me. Someone who actually loves and cares about me. I want someone who actually loves me. I want someone I find cute, who is nice to me. That's generally what I want in a relationship. I want someone attractive, who is kind to me. And maybe not morbidly obese. Okay? I think that's very fair. You know, what do I want in a relationship? I want someone I find attractive, who is kind to me, and who isn't fat. And even then, they can be chubby. I'm chubby. Okay? I don't know if I'll ever be, you know, skinny properly. I mean, I've never had a six-pack in my life. I don't know if I ever will. Maybe one day. I don't know. I've never been athletic. But I'll say this. It's not like I expect the person to be a fucking supermodel. It's not like I expect the person to be basically fucking anorexic or some shit. You know? I just don't want them to look like, you know, they're from like my 600-pound life. You know, they shouldn't look like they'll die if they go up a flight of stairs. Okay? I'm just saying, the person by body mass index shouldn't appear like they can't jog. Okay, maybe that may sound a bit harsh. I'm just saying this. I have no problem with someone being a bit chubby or a little bit fat. That's fine. The problem is they shouldn't be morbidly obese. But again, that's part of the attractive thing. You know, I'm pretty sure if I meet a 700-pound person, I'm not going to be physically attracted to them. Okay? I may look so fucking ugly that Cthulhu reads Lovecraftian horror about me that I'm fucking, if I ever have a fucking VTuber, I'm literally Mimikyu. I'm literally the ugly eldritch horror that is disgusting that everyone would vomit in their mouths when they look at me wearing the cute Pikachu outfit because I want a fucking compliment and a hug. You know. In general, I am a horrific abomination, but I represent myself as a cute twink on the internet because I prefer the idea of not being ugly. You know, I prefer the idea of being cute. I prefer the idea that people would find me attractive. I would much prefer if I was in public, you know, people instead of vomiting in their mouths would get erections. In fact, everyone of all genders gets erections. Even if you don't have a boner. Like, even if you don't have a dick. Just saying. I would prefer the idea of people finding me attractive to, you know, something from a horror movie. You know? In general, what's that amount to? I would like hugs. I would like compliments. I would like someone to tell me they think I'm cute and that I'm attractive. You know, basic self-esteem stuff. I would want someone to find me attractive. In general, is this. I want to meet someone that I find attractive to also find me attractive. And I want them to be very kind to me. Like, in general, like, if I would say, oh, what are the things I would want in a relationship? Someone I find attractive, who also finds me attractive. And for them to be very kind to me, and very affectionate, both in, you know, just friendly ways. Like, you know, maybe you guys could sit and play a video game with me and be my best friend. But also, I'd want to have lots of sex. And I'd want them to respect me and care about my thoughts and feelings. I also would want them not to have any STDs. Okay? I don't want to get some sort of fucking disgusting STD shit. I always see these videos of people saying, oh, in places like Houston and Austin, Texas, you know, there's explosions of STD rates and syphilis and people getting weird, like, I don't know, space alien shit. I don't know. The videos are fucking crazy. That's the best way I can describe it. So, in general, like, what do I want in a relationship? Someone I find attractive who is kind to me and doesn't have STDs and likes me, is kind to me, and wants to have lots of sex with me. And likes cuddling and and also won't cheat on me or be abusive to me or hurt me or try to murder me or mistreat me. In general, very simple. Be cute. Be kind. That's it. Obviously, part of being attractive is, okay, they should be cute. They should be not obese. They should not have the Black Plague or some horrible STD equivalent of it. You know, like if I meet someone and they're super attractive, that's cool. But if I find out they have like syphilis or herpes or gonorrhea or chlamydia or HIV, I'm not going to have sex with them. Because I don't want to get a horrible disease that'll probably kill me or some shit. Also, like if they're like 700 pounds, I'm not going to be attracted to that. That's not cute anymore. Now, I mean, I guess you could be 700 pounds if you're like 12 feet tall. I mean, let's be clear. I would definitely date Astolfo. I would definitely date Kyrie. Ushiromiya. I would definitely date Kaoru from Evangelion. I would definitely date Sare, the VTuber, if I ever met her, but then again, I'm never going to Europe, let alone France. Let's see. I would date Ivy from Soul Calibur 2. I would date Astolfo. I would date Sylvia from Konosuba. If I met an 8-foot tall woman with giant titties who had a foot-long dick and fat nuts, I'm just saying I would bounce on that dick and suck that dick every day. I would also be playing with titties. I'm just saying every girlfriend and wife I ever had, I annoyed them because I was constantly playing with their boobs. I like boobs. Then again, I'll say this. If I met a woman or a guy with a completely flat chest, that's not ideal. I mean, I've asked out plenty of women in the past who were A-cups. Like I said, I've been through lots of rejections. I've been rejected by more women than Goku's power level. Okay? But I'll tell you this. There's plenty of women I asked out that were completely flat as a board. I still asked them out. Now, don't be wrong. Massive giant titties are awesome. I like me some hentai, okay? You look at Kairi Ushiromi, you're like, yeah, she got some big boobs. I like boobs. But I'll say this. Boobs aren't a defining personality characteristic. They're just like, oh, okay, that's nice. But in the same regard, if I met the equivalent of Kairi Ushiromiya, but she was flat, you know, didn't have boobs, and had a cock and balls, yeah. But at that point, what's the definitive factor? What is the deciding factor on whether or not I want to date them, aside from whether or not they want to date me? The deciding factor is, are they kind to me? Because at the end of the day is this. It doesn't matter how beautiful the person is, no matter how attractive I am. I mean, if they're not going to be kind to me, I don't want to be with them. I want someone who's kind to me. I want someone who actually loves and cares about me. And here's the thing. My thing about, like I said, I'm bisexual, but to a large degree I've decided I'm just going to be gay. Why? Granted, I've never been in a gay relationship with anyone ever. Heck, as of recording this, I've never sucked a dick. Or been pegged. Or any of that shit. But when it comes down to this, my relationships with women have been absolutely horrible and traumatizing. To the point that it's just... I don't want to go through that shit again. It was too horrible. Now, I don't hate women. I'm not wishing harm on anyone. I'm just saying, okay, here's a group of people that what I want is I want someone who loves me and is kind to me and that I feel safe with. And I feel like I don't think there's a single woman on the planet who is capable of fulfilling that. So I will just simply be with whoever can fulfill that need. Now, of course, if I'm not going to just date a guy if I don't find someone I'm attracted to. I'll just stay alone. Then again, I'll tell you this. While I tend to be a very lonely person, and I've been alone most of my life, I'll tell you this. I was never more lonely than when I was married. I was never more alone than when I was married. My marriage was awful, and it was horrible. I did everything I could to make it work, and I still say the day my son was born was the happiest day of my life. But my marriage was fucking awful. And like I said, I've gone into detail about that so many fucking times. But again, the shortest way to explain that is I have a 3-inch scar on my right arm to remember my last Christmas being married to my ex-wife by. I don't want to ever be in a relationship with anyone like my ex-wife ever again. And I don't want to be in a legally binding contract with the government forcing me to stay with someone who is cheating on me and abusive to me. Let alone other circumstances that would also bind me to an abusive, adulterous person. Simply put is this. I don't want to enter into any kind of circumstance with another human being that would make it to where if they are ever cheating on me, or if they are being abusive to me or violent to me, that would make it difficult for me to cut off all contact with them and to be away from them. Simply put, I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who cheats on me. I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who is violent to me. I just want a relationship with someone I find attractive, who is kind to me. That's it. And to a large degree, I don't think anyone with a vagina is capable of that. Do I wish harm on anyone? No. I'm just saying, I realize that in this group of people, I don't think that they're capable of giving me what I want to be happy. So I'm just going to not date them. And then again, that's not hard. None of them want me anyway. So haha, I feel like I had to sneeze. I felt like I had to sneeze the past minute and it kept getting worse. And it's like, I can't. I feel like that. Then it's probably best for you guys. I sneeze really loud. There's a cough, but it's just, in general, what do I want in a relationship? Someone I find attractive who is kind to me. The end. And yes, I'd be wanting to have lots of sex. And especially, like I said, say if I get a relationship with like a twink or something. Okay, basically, and what do I mean by twink? Simple. A guy who is cute and not fat. The end. Also doesn't have like tons of facial hair. Like, I don't like the idea of beards and stuff. Then again, I don't like having a beard. I shave. But that's more of a personal preference on that. Like, I don't like having facial hair. But in general, just like, okay. Just saying. I would want to be kissing and making out with and being very physical with whoever I date. Heck, that's true of, like, anytime I dated a woman. You know, I was wanting to kiss the person. I was wanting to, you know, hug them and be making out and all that stuff and playing with their tits a lot. I was very, very affectionate, very lovey-dovey in terms of wanting, you know, cuddles, and I like the idea of showering people and all that sort of stuff. I like spending time with people I care about. I like being affectionate, both in terms of just friendly stuff and sexual stuff. You know, I would want whoever I date to be doing the same too. You know, basically I would view it as I would like two very affectionate, clingy people to be in a relationship together. But hey. But yeah, like I said, I think that's a very reasonable thing. I think most people, who, no matter who you are, would agree with that idea. That, what do you want in a relationship? I want someone attractive that's kind to me. The end. I think that's pretty straightforward. But yeah, I'm just saying, I don't think the whole thing with Battler, like, yes, it's an emotional thing for both of them to have to deal with in this situation. But I don't think that this is the cause of the mass murder thing at Rokkenjima. I think it's all of the shit that happened to Shannon when she was just a baby. Stuff that Shannon herself has no power or control over, and Battler has no control over. And again, I feel the thumbnail illustrates it very well. That it illustrates my point that the Ushiromiya family in general, especially all of the adults, the people that are like in their 40s and 50s, are just really not nice people. That all of the people that are older than Shannon and Battler have done very bad things and are very bad people. Anyway, we have made a super long video. I've been trying to avoid long videos. I've been trying to keep my videos to a maximum of 15 minutes. Most of them are tending to be about 7 minutes, occasionally as short as 5, usually about 10. But I'm trying to keep 15 as the absolute maximum. Not the average, but the longest. I'm trying to keep the average video length to 10 minutes. Trying to be a little more respectful of everyone's attention span. Like, I feel it's much more reasonable to expect someone to be able to sit and watch a 5-minute video than a 3-hour video of me rambling about stuff where I go off on tangents and get easily distracted by everything that happens. I'll be like, hey, do you guys want to ride bikes? Oh, a butterfly! And it's like, hey guys, let's talk about power scaling of Frieza. And now we're discussing the cup sizes of all the characters from Sailor Moon. You know? It's like, Digimon, digital champions, Digimons are the champions. And now we're talking about Bible Black. I'll tell you this, Bible Black is a great anime, but some people would classify it as going a bit further than fan service, so to speak. That being said, I will say the best thing about the anime Bible Black, the soundtrack. The soundtrack is incredible. I feel like I've probably said that I was going to have other things in the description. If I did, remind me. I don't remember what they are. But I'm going to put the soundtrack for Bible Black in this description. It is an amazing, amazing music. I cannot recommend it strongly enough. Heck, tons of bands. Smile Empty Soul, Tool, Disturbed, For the Drive, Noise Auction, Bobaflex, Hinder, System of a Down, Korn, Disturbed, Tool, Perfect Circle, Tiamat, Malmsteen, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Rolling Stones, AC/DC, Megadeth, Metallica. Then again, I'm the kind of person, I'll listen to Pokemon soundtracks and Rammstein at the same time. I enjoy Final Fantasy soundtracks. I enjoy the anime soundtracks of things like Dot Hack Sign. I like video game soundtracks. I like anime soundtracks. I remember listening to the musical score for Batman vs. Superman. I'm just saying, I like anime music. I like the music used in video games. I like to just casually listen to that shit. I like listening to Psy as a Korean pop star dude. You know, Gangnam Style, Mother, Father, Gentleman, Daddy, New Face. I love it. He even did a video of Snoop Dogg once called Hangover. There's the P-Hot song. You know, the... I'll put that in the description too. Okay, I'll put the... I gotta write things down or I won't remember them. Let's see. Bible Black. Psy. And P-Hut, not Pizza Hut. Those Pizza Hut stuff crust pretty good. I don't know. Main point. I'm just saying, imagine if you rewrote Homelander. Like you do a fan thing, but it's like not just the idea of him winning, but the idea of like, okay, let's say a lot of the stuff like he didn't do, and then let's just write him as a person who just goes out of their way to either one, try not to murder people, or two, like, I think someone put a very good point. They tried saying, what if Debbie from Invincible was married to Homelander? Would she be able to reform John? But a lot of times, people growing as part of their own personal choice and the environments. And I think for the large part, Homelander was groomed specifically to be what happened. And even then, it's just, let's be clear. Not only did he go full-on insane in Season 5 about thinking he was God, and it wasn't like he was just delusional, it was like he was fully insane. He was hallucinating it. But there's also this. Earlier, you see conversations like in earlier seasons where he was talking to his reflection, and his reflection was like talking shit to him, telling him to be more violent, telling him to kill people, telling him that he's a pathetic person if he doesn't go around killing people. That it's a validation of his existence, that, you know, it proves him as not being a bad person, that if he doesn't go around being a psychopathic murderer, well then it's just because he's too weak to be going around killing people. That if he doesn't go around murdering people, then he deserves to be called weak and pathetic and doesn't deserve anyone to care about him. I mean, not only would this be same psychological issues with real life, but also, I mean, to a large degree, Homelander is very, you know, gaining those superpowers a lot like the magic of Beatrice. We have someone who is very mentally unstable, who's very damaged, who's then given superpowers. Whether it's 10 tons of gold, Compound V, shotguns, magic, laser eyes. Now, it doesn't justify Homelander doing the shit, nor does it really justify Shannon shooting everyone with a bunch of guns. But it also states they were very unfairly put into a circumstance that did a lot more than just nudge them in that direction. So it's not just an issue of having basic human kindness and decency for what happened to Homelander as he got older. It's that if he had been treated with more of that as he was younger, he would have never became the monster who would do the horrible things he did. And a lot of times the people condemning him for things are doing just as bad things. But of course, it's just the framing of the story. Now, of course, an author can write a story however they want. And who knows? Maybe at the end of this, Battler is written to be a complete irredeemable jerk. I don't know. Could be. I mean, there could be a scene where Battler's just punching puppies for something. I don't know. Anyway, at any point, if an author just wants to just suddenly character assassinate their own character, they can do that. I mean, Goku was written to be unromantic and stupid, to the point that it was done as a joke and it one-dimensionalized his character. So I feel to a large degree if an author decides to write a character one way, and again, you can try to evaluate a story based on the way the characters are and how they interact and what their motivations were, but you can also decide at any point, what if the character just made a different decision? You know, what if the circumstances were just different? The story could have gone differently. After all, isn't that part of critical reasoning, part of critical thinking? Being able to think of, okay, if these factors influence things to go in this direction, what if those were changed? What if you look in the parallel dimensions like Bernkastel does? What if you go in a different direction? What if different decisions are made? How does that affect the story? How does it affect the characters? And again, an author at any point, if they decide that they hate their character, can suddenly start writing their character to be the dumbest, stupidest person ever. Again, Homelander didn't have to go full on fucking insane. Heck, Homelander didn't have to have actually done anything to Becca. Homelander could have at any point, you know, had a conscience, decided he didn't want to kill people, or not be antagonized on certain things, or could have chosen not to kill Firecracker. Or heck, what if you rewrote the story and the main change you made was Homelander actually respected other people? What if Noir told Homelander, like the moment they first saw Soldier Boy, he's like, no. Instead of like tearing out his track, tripping around, he's like, no. He waved his arms frantically. He's like, no, you, me. And he's like, we need to go somewhere. And he explained to Homelander. Even if it was like, hey, he didn't trust people. Like, what if he went to Homelander and it's like, put his hand up, and then took out his knife, stabbed himself, took out his chip, and then took out his paper and wrote, fly us somewhere safe. And then Homelander's like, okay, we're up in the mountains, what's up? Also, your arm's bleeding. And Noir just took out, almost says, Stan Edgar has power over me. That chip can explode. He can track us. It's like, what's on? Stan Edgar's been making me keep secrets from you. It's like, what? All of Vought is against us. And Homelander's like, what do you mean? Soldier Boy is your dad. He's like, what? Why didn't you tell me? I thought he was dead. Also, Stan would not let me. I don't know why and how he's alive. Also, he was a huge jerk to everyone. He's the reason my face looks like this. Or heck, imagine if Soldier Boy, like I even put in one of my community posts, you know, basically turned and said to John, hey, Well, I already said in the community post, you can read the community post. But I'm just saying this. The Soldier Boy said he'd stay and try to help John, but, you know, as long as he gave up delusions of being God. Same way, if John was like, hey, no, please. I don't understand a lot of things. I know there might be some stuff wrong. But I want you to stay. And I'm willing to do what I can to, like, try to figure that out. But it's just, and again, you didn't have to write Homelander to be as much of an asshole. And so many times he acted like dumb. And granted, yes, he's an impulsive person with no anger control, no emotional regulation, and a lack of respect for life. But he didn't have to be written so fucking stupid or homicidal. But it is understandable that's how Vought conditioned him. That's how they wanted him. It made him easier to control and point as a weapon. They didn't treat him as a person. But imagine, like, how the ending would have gone if he didn't lock Soldier Boy up. I mean, even if Soldier Boy saw on the television Homelander getting brutally murdered. Or heck, imagine if there was more emotional support for Butcher, so people were more involved with him so he wouldn't just go off on his own. Or, you know, or if Huey was, and again, he was taking his finger off the controller. Imagine if Huey just didn't shoot. Like, he couldn't bring himself to shoot Butcher. No one would have died. Or the ending where Starlight's going around having fights while pregnant. Like, I feel like the villains at that point would, like, start, like, wait, I don't want to fight you. So what, you don't want to fight a woman? You don't want to punch a woman? Like, I don't want to punch a pregnant person. Like, why do I, the villain, have more concern for the life of your child than you do? What is happening? But a lot of times it's just like the characters are written such a way, and it's like, Sister Sage, okay, if you're the smartest person in the world, why weren't you helping people? And even then, it's like, when you lost the combat, you weren't going to normal, you weren't to... And it's just like, what was the point of anything? And overall, like, what is Vought's plan? Like, okay, you're doing the superheroes, what, to make money? But how expensive is it? Like, it's a terrible business idea. It's kind of like the idea with the Matrix, where people explain that the idea of the people in the Matrix pods was for processing power. But it's explained as batteries for two reasons. One, because Morpheus is working from, you know, bits and pieces of information. He doesn't, it's not like someone was able to properly teach him this shit. And yes, the machines harvest heat and electricity from them, but that's more so being efficient. The purpose is, like, humans aren't very good as batteries, but we are good as very good, you know, data centers. That's what we are. We're computers. But the idea is that would the average person watching a movie get the idea that the humans are being used for processing power, that we're RAM? No, it's easier just to write us as batteries, because it's a movie. We need to just have an easy to digest information and move the fuck on. And in the same way, it's like, it's not an issue of, like, humans not engaging, like, oh, you write earlier forms of the Matrix to be paradises. Oh, but the humans figured out. But that's not an issue. Like, okay, they're still alive. They're still producing energy. It's that you need to keep them engaged in the environment. If it's too bad, they'll disengage and shut down. Like, you make it a fucking hellscape, the people just disengage and shut down. Like, if you abuse a dog long enough, it's just going to sit in the corner and starve itself to death because it's so fucking depressed it would rather die than fucking live around people. In the same regard, you can't just abuse the fuck out of a dog or else it'll become violent. In either situation, you don't blame the fucking dog. You blame the abusive human. But at the same time, if you take humans and you're trying to use them for processing power, you can't just, like, have everything be perfect, or else they're not having to engage. It's like humans, like, yeah, you can give them AI to draw shit for them, that's awesome. But if they're going to stop drawing themselves, then they're not going to learn and develop and grow as people themselves. It's like, if you're going to be a teacher, you have to actually teach. But you can't do everything for the person, but you also can't just abandon them. And you can't be abusive to them either. You like, if you're going to be a tutor, one, you can't just abandon the person and tell them to do it themselves. But at the same time, you can't do everything for them. You also can't just like be beating them if they get an answer wrong. Get out of the person actually fucking engaged in the shit. But like, take the story of the boys. What if you just rewrote it, but what if Homelander always treated his team with respect? Like, just the ending. Imagine how that'd be different if, like, he didn't freeze Soldier Boy up. Imagine if he didn't kill Firecracker. Imagine if he wasn't insane and overbearing on people and just randomly killing people. What if he was just like, he didn't kill Firecracker? What if he treated people more respect? What if like he was more involved with the Deep and the new Noir so that they wouldn't have to fight over things? And he actually cared about their thoughts and feelings and they were engaged. There would never be a reason that they were engaged in terms of being supported to each other. At which point, there'd be no reason for, the fish to ever hate the Deep. There'd be no reason for, heck, there's no reason for Starlight to even know the fish hated him. So why would you take him to a beach and lock him into the water where he'd be the most powerful? And a lot of stuff they wrote the Deep to be as a depraved, psychotic person possible. Heck, some people even mentioned that the Deep was actually suicide. Because at the end of the day, maybe he doesn't talk to fish. Maybe he telepathically controls them. Like they're fucking drones. After all, they're not sentient. At which point it means this. Everything that ever happened with any of the fish wasn't him talking to fish. It was him talking to himself because he has schizophrenia. At which point it also means that the fish that killed him at the end was him mind controlling the fish, killing himself with his own subconscious. Because he was so angry at himself for like just all the shit he's done wrong. But again, it's just, imagine if Homelander just respected the Deep. Like, what if rewrote the boys, and the only difference you did was Homelander respected his teammates. He treated people with kindness. He actually wasn't like a self-centered asshole. What if he never disrespected the Deep ever? Like, everything that he ever did that was abusive to Kevin, what if Homelander never said or did anything wrong to the Deep and was actually kind and respectful to the Deep? How would that have changed the show? If Homelander actually respected the Deep and the Deep respected Homelander and John and Kevin were just friends who treated each other with respect and were actually listening to each other. Heck, what if Homelander didn't kill the initial Black Noir? What if, what if Kevin just didn't kill that one dude? At that theater and Noir never, burst a fucking pipeline? Basically, what if the bad people weren't written to be retarded assholes who were just impulsive crybabies who are mean and violent to people, who have no control over their self-esteem or their emotional regulation, and they just sort of lash out, and they have the 5-second rule, meaning they can't remember what happened 5 seconds ago, but they can't think 5 seconds in the future. Everything's just they're fucking morons who have low IQ, who have no self-control, no executive functioning, no executive reasoning. They can't fucking think, and everything they do is self-sabotaging, and they're just impulsive assholes with anger issues and who have no respect for human life. I don't know. Again, I'm going to try to keep the shorter videos, but my bad, guys. I got carried away. I've been trying to keep the shorter videos between 5 and 15 minutes, averaging 10 minutes. But this is what happens if I start going on a tangent. And I'm glad I wrote it down. I was going to put music and stuff in the description that I thought was cool. Anyway, bye.